I bring you the news, the real news. Some days more than other days. And today is a big one. I have a guest joining me. And boy, my audio levels are all over the place. Sorry, I blew you out, my audience, during that introduction, maybe a little bit. Joining me today, and thank you everyone who's joined the show on YouTube, on Twitch, or is watching after the fact on a myriad of different platforms. I'm your host, Nathan Stoltman. My producer is missing in action at the moment, but will hopefully show up by the end of the show. That's Doshi. Joining me today is Douglas Gabriel, a.k.a. Thomas Paine of American Intelligence Media, who recently came on the radar of a whole bunch of people in regards to the QAnon phenomenon. And Doug will figure out which name did. Well, we'll go by talk on American Intelligence Media. It's Thomas and Betsy. That's his stage name. Thomas came out. They came out and said that QAnon was basically it turned into an intelligence operation. That it started out one way, turned out another way, made a lot of QAnon fanatics upset. And subsequently, that channel, American Intelligence Media, if you go to their numbers, they've been losing subscribers like crazy. It's a very controversial situation, which is why I asked Thomas Douglas to come on my show to talk about it today, because I have a lot of questions, a whole lot of questions. So, first things first, Douglas, what do you want me to call you today? Doug?
You can call me whatever you want, Nathan. Let's see. Doug Short, if you want.
Okay. All right, no problem. Thanks for joining me today. How are you doing?
Great. Thank you for having me on your show.
All right. So I guess let's get right to it. For one thing, I want to know, we know each other from before. So can we rewind to way back, I think last summer, the first time you contacted me?
Mm-hmm.
So what? And tell me the reason for that. We talked, and you said you were a big fan of the show. Said maybe you could help me out with some stuff. I believe maybe Hollywood or other things. And we had a lunch date basically, which I ended up having a show at that time, and then I never followed up. What was that about? Why did you end up contacting me? And
I heard. Why did you end up contacting me? Was the last thing I heard you say.
Yeah. Well, that was the end of it. Sorry, it sounded like I had more to say. Why did you contact me in the first place? Why did you reach out to me way back when you did?
Well, because we watch everyone, and the conclave keeps an eye on everybody. And I was told you were doing good work. I looked at it, and you were doing good work, and we just wanted to make sure that you were headed in the right direction, because you have so many pieces of the puzzle. And so what the conclave does it's also not dissimilar to what Cicada 3301 does, though they're completely different groups. We reach out to people and pat them on the back sometimes and see if there's a little help we can give, so on and so forth.
Okay, now when people say conclave, when they hear conclave, they're thinking cult, or they're thinking secret society. And what do you mean? And even I'm a little curious. What do you mean? Make sure I was going in the right direction. That sounds. Were you hoping that I would become a member of this conclave that you speak of, which is like a secret society? Is that right?
Well, the Cicada 3301 is something like that. As you know, you have to pass their cryptological puzzles to be able to be invited in. But no, the conclave is just a group of my friends and I, and we are actually spread out all over the world. A lot of us with government jobs, and we're retired, most of us. And basically, they're the people I contact whenever I need to vet something, and then they feed me information. And then when I write intelligence reports for the American Intelligence Media, which we post on Truth News headlines twice a day, we basically put the conclaves, and we could change the name. We could just call it a group. It's just a group of old men, to be quite frank with you, Nathan. These are some people who had some very, very, very high-level jobs. And so when things come out, and we only use open source material, we only use things that are online, we are basically there to help people translate and get through what is called falsehood politics, or our age of untruth. And so everyone needs someone to help them discern things. So when we write intelligence reports, we try to give you the content to show you how to get to the truth. And of course, we continuously reveal things that are actually quite breaking news, whether it be the senior executive services, the fact that, QAnon at first was connected to, that's not breaking, by the way. It's not breaking at all. But the fact it was breaking to us that QAnon was connected to Cicada 3301 or the other groups that are connected to Cicada 3301. So we develop talent, and the only thing we were going to do for you exactly what I'm going to do today, which is give you some pieces to the puzzle, pat you on the back, and say you're doing a great job.
Interesting. Boy, I'm going to have so many different questions for you. So let's start out with, you said it's a group of old guys with government jobs who might have had government connections who bring together crowdsourced or open source information, and then you funnel that through to your websites, basically, of which you have a number actually that you run. Was that about what you said?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. All right, and then let's talk about you. Since you talk about government experience, you say that you said that you're an NSA cryptographer. That you were an NSA cryptographer. Now, go ahead and tell me about that. And I may as well mention now, Monograph called into my show with what he claimed was information about you, and he said you didn't work for the NSA, and that it was the ASA. And so, do you want to go ahead and clear that up as well?
These are the very things I knew, and we knew that we could trust you to ask all the pertinent questions, because you're not a person that's easily fooled, you see, and that's the reason that you've got to where you're at. The NSA and the ASA are one and the same. In 1972, there was a lottery, and my number came up short, and so I got drafted. And so I left the priesthood, and that's how I had some of my religious connections that people can't understand how I could have been in the priesthood and then went into the NSA. I was in the NSA. I trained at Fort Devens, Massachusetts, in an all-service training facility. And then of course, that is part of the NSA. Then I was assigned to Shimmy, Alaska, and a number of other places. And then I went back and was a teacher there at that trade school, which trained literally, of course, intelligence people from all the different military groups. So when I was in Alaska, I was actually assigned to the Air Force. When I was in Fort Bragg, I was assigned to 101st Airborne. When I was all over the place because I was one of their at that time only, Nathan, a whiz kid. So I passed their tests high, so they used me a lot to do different things. And so I invented a few things, helped them with a lot of spying. I was into telemetry, all types of signal intelligence. I wrote code directly into the Fort Meade, Maryland computer at that time, head of the NSA, which was at that time the largest computer in the world. Later, there were others that I worked on, but the point is that was a long time ago. So all I know is the strategies of these things. I know the way that they tend to work, and I have friends who were in very high positions just recently who they will never compromise their security clearances. They go to jail for things like that, you see, whereas politicians don't. So we aren't whistleblowers. We aren't anything that is illegal. We aren't hackers. The conclave, and change the name to a cave. It's really a man cave, Nathan, if we really wanted to get serious. It's more like a man cave. We go over to Betsy's house, and we sit around and we chat, and then anytime I need something vetted, I vet it through them, as well as my sources and so other sources, and myself vetting it. So really, we're not trying to reveal anything secret, or anything like that. And so the whole QAnon thing, well, we'll get that when you have a question about it.
Okay, yeah. Well, because more and more questions keep popping up, the more you talk. So because I was really interested in a lot of this stuff. So what you're saying, kind of technically, so people understand, is you got drafted. Now you're a PhD, so you got drafted while you were in college, or what happened there? Did you get that after you came out of the Army or out of the armed forces? You got your PhD?
Well, when I tell you the truth, you'll it sounds more like a conspiracy. But by the time I graduated high school, I already had a degree in computer programming because I had accelerated. At the same time, I was doing formation under a Benedictine, and so by the time I graduated high school, I not only had an associate's degree in computer programming, it's just what I was doing in high school, and going to I can name these places. Southwest Missouri State University had a program. I was in it, and it was an accelerated program. And I also, at the same time, from age 14 to the time I graduated high school, trained with a Benedictine monk who was a Benedictine priest. He was the head of Conception Abbey, the largest house of formation in America outside of Kansas City. He was in a wheelchair, and he put me through the training. So I actually went through the training when I was in high school, what's called formation. So I had a degree in that. So by the time I left the military after 3 years in 75, I went back to being a monk as a Trappist. And then they long story. They told me I should go be a Jesuit. I didn't know what a Jesuit was. So I went and I became a Jesuit. And then because I already had a degree in formation, all Jesuits have a Doctor of Divinity. So I got a Doctor of Divinity, and then I specialized in comparative religions and philosophy. And so I ended up having multiple degrees as a Jesuit. And then I went, and as a Jesuit, I looked into other organizations that might have things that could help the Catholic Church. So, you can read about this over on our other side. I've written 13 books. I think 9 of them are available. None of these are hidden. Nothing we do is hidden. And some of them are very religious. And so some people would say, I'm part of a cult, or I started a cult. That's really silly. There's no cult. There's nothing illegal going on. Oh.
Yeah, Doshi's here.
That's one of the great things is I always said to Betsy, look, we need to get a cat in the picture, because everybody loves cats. I love watching cats. I'm mesmerized by them. But anyway, so I got a PhD in comparative religions. I went to St. Louis University in the end through their Jesuit house there. And all these degrees are through the Jesuit house. But they're Regis University, Rockhurst University, St. Louis University, blah, blah, blah. And then I got almost another degree because I came out, and then I got a BA in, oh, Lord, it's very complicated. I have lots and lots of degrees.
Well, that's all right. I think, no problem. I was just trying to get the timeline straight for the getting drafted and getting your degrees and stuff. I think you cleared it up. And then I just to clear up for people how you got in the NSA, it sounds like you were drafted and you're an egghead. So they tested you, right, when you get drafted, and they said, oh my God, this guy's, maybe we shouldn't be sending this guy to the front line. Maybe we should have him behind a keyboard or something doing stuff there. That's kind of what happened, right? That's how you ended up associated with the NSA?
Pretty much. And there was a lottery, so people could, pick and say, oh, you weren't drafted. Well, there was a lottery. My number came up short, so I decided to go in and do the testing and join the Air Force because I heard that I wouldn't have to carry a gun. I was like a conscientious objector. I didn't want to carry a gun and shoot people. So I thought, I'm an egghead. I'll go in. I'll do well in these tests and see what I can do in the Air Force. So I tested, and then, more people kept coming in the room and testing, make sure I wasn't cheating. And then they eventually called me in a room and said, okay, what do you think about being in Cloak and Dagger? And I said, Cloak and Dagger? I don't even know what you're talking about. Then they asked me about my background, and because I was a perfectly straight person, they could see I'd get a top secret security clearance background check, okay. And so they offered me one of 3 things, and it wasn't the Air Force. It was to either enter... Well, should I say that? I guess okay. Well, I guess I have to say it.
Go ahead.
It's the truth. There's 3 branches you can go into if you're an egghead and you happen to also have kind of intuitive capacities. Everybody calls it Men Who Stare at Goats, Stargate. There's many of these programs. But they literally said, which do you want to go into? That one? You want to be a linguist? Or do you want to work with machines? Because we see you have this degree. And I think at the time it was called just computer programming. It was like the first degree ever. Yeah, and it was on old computers that you wouldn't even believe. I worked on unit record equipment. I worked in machine language in those days. So I said, well, I want to be a systems analyst because I thought in my head that was the top thing you could do with computers. And they said, systems analyst, we can take you much higher than that. Okay, but you have to go through boot camp in the Army. And I said, well, why do I have to do that? They said, because the Army assignment for NSA, which you'll be part of, is much more universal, blah, blah, blah. And I'm going, I don't want to go in the Army, and I don't want to do basic training. And they said, no, that's really the route you have to go. So I went into the Army, and then went to Fort Devens, as I said. And then when I got out, I did the degree work. And then I became a teacher, and I became a professor of education and things like that.
Right, right. Okay, I think I'm starting to get it together. So I wanted to, really kind of make sure we understood the experience as were you a code breaker or what was, you said you wrote some stuff for the NSA in Fort Meade. What was the kind of thing you put in the system there?
Yes, in those days, code breaking,
Yeah.
we would try to, well, we didn't try. We spied on the enemy, we intercepted their signals intelligence, and then we tried to break it out either with machines or by little tricks. Like if they wouldn't turn on their encoding machine and it would be in clear, we would then be able to backtrack. But you see, all these codes were changed each day, especially in our service. So I started off working in signal intelligence until I became what was called a traffic analyst, and then I became a COC operator, collection operations center operator, and then I became the trick chief, and then I worked in the communication center, then I started working telemetry, and pretty soon we were spying. I was part of the group spying on basically everything, and I moved up through the groups because everything's compartmentalized. Nobody knows what everybody's doing in the next room. So anybody who tells you they know everything, that is an incorrect premise. So then I worked for GE, and we were in charge of all telemetry. And I can say this now because after all these years, it's no longer top secret. But when the certain country would launch a missile, I had already, with my groups, different groups, analyzed that this was going to happen because we looked at who was talking to who and tried to break it out. But even if they didn't break it out, we still could figure it out. And then we would launch these airplanes, which had some spying gear on it that I helped create, and then we would go and watch it launch, and then we'd know what's in it, and then by the time it went over my island, I had to know what was in it, whether it was nuclear, whether there was a monkey in there, I literally mean that, or a cosmonaut, or it was just another satellite. And so literally, we only had a couple minutes to know this because we were so close to that country. We were closer to that country than we were to America, spying on them. And that was during the Cold War. And so that was my job. And so, yes, I did write code directly into Fort Meade, the computer. But I was a cryptologist because I used all these different mechanical ways to break out code. And so I worked with, Honeywell and IBM and all these companies to try to get the human out of the middle of it and get the human error out of the middle of it. And so I helped invent all kinds of things, collapsed array antennas, ambient noise surveillance, all these kind of things. But it was me and a group of people. It wasn't just me. And you get no credit for this. You're in the military, and you're not even supposed to talk about it. But it's been so long. I can now say this. I'm not NSA psyops like some people accuse me of. I can't even get my Skype to work, as you noticed, Nathan. I am not. I am not a spy in that sense of a word. We were contacted because of the good work we were doing by some of these groups, and now we know that some of them are basically supporting us in ways that they have again and again confirmed for us, and we've been able to prove again and again and again.
Okay, now you just turned it to something really, really interesting. Before I get back to that, which is people contacting you, before I get back to that, back when we spoke last summer, I think it was, around last summer, were you already American Intelligence Media? Did you already have a YouTube channel at that time?
Well, you're going to make me reveal everything, aren't you, Nathan?
Well, I want to know.
The Anonymous Patriots had already been in existence for some time, and we had been posting on 20 different sites under a variety of names. And we were, if you want to follow us, we were the Anonymous Patriots that always reached number one on Before It's News. It became kind of a game for us because we were asked to analyze the San Bernardino shooting. And we did, and we wrote articles that then became kind of standards in the to look at perception management, false flags within false flags. And so we started writing these things for these other agencies, news agencies. And then we became so popular at it because we always reach number one and get, hundreds of thousands of hits. So that's us.
Other news Patriots. Agencies, other news agencies like Before It's News? You mean that is a news agency? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, I call everything that's all news agencies. I'm sorry.
Okay. No, that's okay. I just wanted to understand. So you were anonymous patriots, and your stuff would go to the top of like this one website before it's news. Now, strangely enough, the first thing I ever did was go really deep into the San Bernardino stuff. Did you guys look at what I was doing on that by any chance, or were you guys doing something totally separate?
Not at that time. We didn't.
Okay.
I didn't. I didn't. You didn't come to my notice until much later. But the deal is what I'm saying is we were also on a Millennium Report, State of the Nation, Cosmic Convergence, and 17 other sites. And so we would write these, and we thought, well, what the heck, here it is, and we're getting them all these hits. And then we could see that Ben was about to change because Trump had held up that piece of paper saying he got his, and they said, oh, look, Trump gets his intelligence from before it's news, this crazy conspiratorial thing. Well, there were crazy conspiratorial things on that site. We were one of the few really serious truth news people, and that's the reason we got so many hits. And most of our articles were 35 pages long and just so full of information that could be proven, all open source, that people just begged us to keep doing it. Then they'd call us up from this group, that group. They'd say, watch them, watch that. What can you write on this? Can you write on that? And so we continued to, and then we were thanked by people for what we were doing, and then eventually we could see that it was going to not continue the way it was. And now if you look at Ben now, it's totally different before it's news. And some of these other sites, they're quite... So Betsy, my wife, who is Dr. Tyla Gabriel, who is a doctor, and we have written 5 books together. As I say, I've written actually more books than I know of. I can't keep track. I think at least 9 or 10 or 13 of them out there that you can buy still. But the point is we started writing, and we wrote about all the spiritual stuff at the same time. And then we started becoming geopolitical, and we realized we need to wake up people. Well, waking up people is the same thing as spiritual stuff. It's consciousness. We need to teach people discernment. Well, that's what the whole path of spirituality is about, discernment through all these paths. Which of the traditions would you choose, or none of the traditions? And if you're on your own, what North Star are you guiding yourself to? So we said, well, out in the geopolitical world, we can help. So we started doing this stuff, and then it became quite popular. And by the way, those people who left us, we want them to leave. We want them to leave our YouTube site. They don't understand. Betsy tells them what we're doing all the time. We have a very clear plan, and that's because we're branding. We are branding the site. We don't want stragglers who are not thinking. We don't want people putting silly comments because they simply haven't used their basic consciousness to read the articles. We had so many people now have come and criticized us, unsubscribed, come back later and say, I went out and I looked for truth someplace else and I couldn't find it too many other places. And then I came back and I looked at your site again and I looked at all your intelligence reports. You're the best thing out there. I'm subscribing again, and I apologize. The Q phenomena, lost us 7,000 people on YouTube. We don't care about that at all. We don't care. We have other forms of direct communication that we have. We don't need these. We already know these sites will go down. We've already predicted all of these things about Facebook. We've been showing Facebook's criminality for about a year and a half, and we call all of that out, and we call it out again today.
Let me just jump in. But you keep saying we, and so I guess this is the part, and then we'll get to the Jesuit thing, which a lot of people have questions about, and then the faith thing that you guys are into. We'll get into that. You said that people reached out to you, and you're using the word we a lot. And I know there's you and Betsy who write books and are into the spiritual thing, it sounds like. And then there's we, which I assume is this group of guys, the conclave. Mm-hmm. Now, you said you were reached out to at some point because of your research. So the research started with San Bernardino, and it started trending on Before It's News in particular. And that was who was working on that research? You and...
That was Betsy, her team, and me and my group of friends.
Betsy has a team too. Is that different from her team? And
yes.
Well, tell me about that. How's her team different than the guys you work with?
Well, when we decided to move over from Ben and start our own group, so many people followed us that Betsy has literally dozens of people. I don't know how many people. Dozens of people who communicate with her, who send her information. So she is getting I guess what you'd call crowdsourced, aggregated news from every place imaginable. I can't even find the places. I don't know how she finds all this stuff. So it's sent to her. Now, that started a group of people who are major contributors. So from now and then you will see, you might not know it, but you'll see articles from people who are part of her team that are amazing people who write astounding articles, shocking, that wake you up. Same thing we do. They give you the facts. This is not speculation. So she's got all of those people. Then she's got all of her people who have volunteered to help. We have a thing that we started a long time ago called the glass bead game. It's taken from Hermann Hesse's book, Magister Ludi. It's a form of taking all branches of science and creating a synthesis of them, and then doing a performance with them each year that is so beautiful that it's the most inspiring cultural motif that leads culture on into the future. So we ask people to participate in this game. So they come in and they do all kinds of stuff for us. You can't even believe we have people all over the world who are doing things for us, like really cool spiritual things, nice things, helping people out. So that's some of the people in the team.
Okay. This is where it gets really weird. So
Sorry.
No, it's great because this is kind of what people are wondering about. So the first thing I saw on the website was the glass bead game. I mean, I was like, oh, what the hell is this? And then I saw, and it seems like kind of the introduction to a secret society. It says go out and tell 10 more people, and it seems like a recruiting tool of some sort. And I imagine the idea is that anybody who's interested in the game in the first place, because most people are going to see that and not even click on it, and then interested enough to go a step further, and then maybe you can figure out some of the puzzles or whatever the puzzle is, then they stand out suddenly, and then they are an opportunity to be recruited, basically, or asked to join this conclave. I mean, there is some kind of secrecy involved. Is that right? And there is some sort of recruiting involved for the conclave?
No, but that's why I love you. You figure, you actually put things into words just then that I never thought about, but I guess it's kind of true in a way. But it's much simpler than that. So you're absolutely right, but it's much simpler because, I'm a hillbilly from the Ozarks, okay? So this isn't really all that terribly complex. The glass bead game is just all that you described. But what it does is it shows you that Thomas and Betsy are also Douglas and Tyla. And it takes you over what we call the bridge. And if you go over the bridge, then you'll go to our other sites. Our other sites are ourspirit.com, eternalcurriculum.com, Neoanthroposophy, the Temple of Wisdom, all these other things that have been created before we ever started any geopolitical work. Now, are we trying to solicit people or get them over there? In a way, if you are interested in that, we sometimes post articles that would directly tell you that. We're not hiding anything. We post videos of me. You see my face. It's my voice. So I say I'm Douglas Gabriel, and I'm interviewing, or I'm doing this for ourspirit.com. So there's nothing really hidden, but we built that in there because as we were writing these books, we said, look, this is a consciousness game, and we need to engage people in puzzles. When you do a global branding thing, there's like 6 steps, and one of them is you involve them in a process, a game where they believe they're part of a group doing something that has kind of cool words and a vernacular that is special, a jargon that's this is standard commercialized branding, right? So yeah, we did that. We didn't do it to gain anybody. I can't say we've never reached out to anybody from our spirit to say we want you to become a follower of this. And by the way, what's in those books, that's straight up Christianity. The only single thing in those books that is not straight up Christianity, basically, is that the female aspect of the divine, just like the male aspect has, the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, it's a Trinity. We say the female aspect is also a Trinity.
Right.
That's not a big deal.
Right. Well, a lot of people are going to say it is. I don't know whether to give my this isn't about my opinion, this show, but I'm not as dogmatic about your beliefs being antithetical to Christianity or antithetical to being a truth teller necessarily. So I'm not taking just the fact that you're a Jesuit or just the fact that you're a little more in the esoteric spiritual realm rather than the more dogmatic Christian realm. I'm not taking that as by itself anything that should dismiss what you say, but a lot of people do. And I guess so. Just to go back over the history, so people are clear on it. You in high school already, you were at a Benedictine school where you were training to be a priest, or sometimes they say monk, right? And then you went to the army or intelligence. You did that work, and then you came back and you were still a priest. And then one of your superiors said you'd be better off as a Jesuit, and so you said sure, right? And I assume as a Jesuit they didn't teach you to kill babies and the stuff that people say about Jesuits. And do you want to break up any misconceptions people might have about Jesuits? Because there are people who are going to say Jesuits run the world, and the Pope obviously is Jesuit. Do you have anything you want to say about that? And then I can ask you a little bit more about the other spiritual stuff and some other, and Freemasonry and Rosicrucianism and all that.
But marvelous.
Yeah. So anyway, anything you want to comment there?
Yes, I do. I'd love to, because there's so much confusion. First off, I was brought into the Jesuits. I didn't really have a choice. I was a monk, and like you say, I was trained as a priest. I was young. I got out of it. To get away from it, really, and to go in the military. And then when I got out of the military, I disliked machines so much that I wanted to go back to just being a monk and living just out in the, literally, where they have Trappist monks. I became a Trappist monk. Can
I let me ask something? It's kind of weird. So because you can't hang out with girls and stuff. Mm-hmm. So what drew you to that in the first place? I know you did when you were younger. So you can chalk that up to not knowing what you want to do. But it is an interesting choice. You made a choice, basically, I assume, to be celibate, or at least to say you were as part of that. I mean, why did you make that choice in the first place?
Oh, boy, you're good. That's why I like you so much. You are such a good
Don't blow smoke up my ass.
No, I'm not blowing smoke up your ass. I'm telling you, you're good. You ask the questions that I can't get around to answering because they are part of the story, and without them, the story doesn't make any friggin' sense. When I was baptized, the priest who baptized me was the priest who later trained me, and I was dedicated to the Catholic Church. We had 7 children in the family, and my dad needed a job terribly, and he found out that his wife was pregnant again, and so the priest said, do a St. Jude novena and dedicate the child to the church. So they did. They got the job. They dedicated the child to the church. I didn't have a choice. At age 14, I was made to train with that priest. At age 21, when I was in the Trappist monastery trying to stay away from the world, they said, I had a vision. I told them what it was, and they said, that's the training of the Jesuit. You can't stay in it anymore. God spoke to you. You have to become a Jesuit. I said, I didn't want the vision. I told him what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. Okay, and my Father Superior said, I'm sorry, that's the Jesuit secret training plan. Now, are Jesuits evil? Yeah, you better believe it. Is the current Pope evil Jesuit? You better believe it. He turned the entire ecclesiastical curia into complete Jesuits, and he's now written 12 documents, which nobody wants to talk about, that change practically every doctrine and every dogma in the Catholic Church. I got out of the Catholic Church because of the corruption of the Jesuits and the Jesuit takeover of the Catholic Church, which was a long, long time ago when they actually started to move the Jesuits into the control of the Catholic Church. Now, do Jesuits take vows that exonerate them from killing people ahead of time? Yes, they do in the old days. Do they take that now? No. Those Jesuits now, they are educators. They run 25 universities. Are those universities of propaganda? Yes, they are. They're Catholic propaganda. Yes. Do they follow certain political bent? Yes, they do. Are the Jesuits a part of a lot of evil? Yes, they are. Look to the Knights of Malta. Look to the Council on Foreign Relations. Look to so many evil Jesuit institutes. Why? Because they do take a vow of chastity, obedience, and poverty, and they take an extra vow, and that extra vow is to what is called the Black Pope. the general of the Society of Jesus, which is the general of the Jesuits, called the Black Pope. And that is true to this very day. And yes, I did take that vow, and now I have abdicated that vow a long, long time ago. And that vow was, I will do whatever it takes, whatever I am told to do by the Black Pope, the head of the Jesuits, to protect the Pope. That's the vow you take now. You don't take vows of horribleness, but you do a 30-day silent meditation, which is called Manresa, Manresa. I did not do that. I was not programmed like a Jesuit. I did the antidote to it. That's a little bit hard to understand, but let me tell you. The war in the Middle East is based upon Jesuit liberation theology, which is nothing more than Marxism turning into a form of communism, which is a theocracy ran by the Catholic Church. And the Jesuits, many of them, and certainly our current Pope, believes in what is called apocalyptic theology. They believe that we are going to have the War of Armageddon now. Now remember, the Muslims also believe that. The Shiites believe it more than the Sunnis, but they believe the Mahdi is going to come, their Messiah. It's all focused on outside of the field of Armageddon, of course, Armageddon, outside of Damascus. This is the area where not only the Jewish faith believes that the Messiah will return to, for them, which is a physical king who will rule the world, and Jews will have a hegemony, however you want to pronounce it, world control. The Muslims believe the same thing, that when the Mahdi, that Muhammad al-Mahdi comes, that it's focused on Damascus, and when he comes, and they've already had the other signs, the giant meteorite that hit Iran was one of them, the cloud of red blood over Baghdad, and now if the destruction of Damascus happens, then all of the prophecies are complete. That's why they want to bomb Damascus. So you have the fundamental Christians who believe that there is going to be a rapture or an apocalypse there at the same spot, same exact spot for Christians, Muslims, and Jews. So the fundamentalists are leaning towards that, and the Jesuits are the worst of all. These Jesuits aren't Christian. They are not Roman Catholics. They are not Christian at all. And if you look up this, you can find it in history, the battle between the Jesuits and the Knights of Malta. But what did the new Jesuit Pope do? He fired the head of the Knights of Malta. Remember, even the Rothschilds take a vow of fealty to the head of the Knights of Malta. They're the biggest insider trading group in the world. So the corruption of the Vatican, Q just said $228 billion. What a joke. What a joke. The Pope can sneeze $228 billion. That's what they make a year from just the refugee money that they make. It is actually more than that. So to say that the Vatican Bank... No, the Knights of Malta have fealty oaths from Jews, Muslims, and Christians, as well as the white monarchy and the black monarchy, which is the ones who have been deposed. And every rich person you know, and I have been part of this, I'm not speaking from inexperience or speculation. The Knights of Malta are the largest insider trading group in the world. Who runs it now? The Jesuits.
What do you mean you were part of it?
I was asked to vet the Knights of Malta by some very rich people, Jewish people, and Christian and Muslims, and because I knew them and they were invited, and they're very, 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 very rich. I can't tell you their names because when you're in the Knights of Malta and you're Jewish, you usually don't want people to know that you took a vow to the Pope. But anyway, I knew of their existence. I didn't know of their power until I vetted them. And when I vetted them, I was more shocked than I had historically understood. And it goes so deep that I don't want to get off the track. But yes, Jesuits are evil. They're involved everywhere. I did not do the Manresa indoctrination, which is 30 days of silence, where you meditate upon Jesus Christ returning on a white horse with a sword to create a Christian world control, hegemony. Mm-hmm. Right. That is crazy. I believe in all traditional religions, and I'm Christian, very Christian, but there's the golden thread run through all of them, and I don't believe in any fundamentalism whether no matter in any form, in any religion, especially one that says war now. Let's have the rapture now. Let's have Armageddon now. Let's have the El Mahdi return now. Let's have the Messiah return. No, no, no. I do not believe that any spiritual leader is going to come back and create a world war that turns the entire world into one religion. I will never believe that, and we have been fighting against that. And when I found out that Q, the original QAnon, that's what they were communicating, and that's what Cicada 3301 is communicating, stop the surveillance, give us back our free speech, stop the corruption in Washington, and stop this war in the Middle East.
Okay, so one thing I want to ask, in regards to being in touch with these people and vetting for the Knights of Malta and knowing about this trading group, knowing these rich people, the fact is you're fairly wealthy yourself. Is that right? And,
no,
and how,
no, I'm not wealthy.
Are
Betsy. Right? You're talking about Betsy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Betsy is our philanthropist. And
okay.
She, I wouldn't say she's very wealthy. Let's just say we don't have to no one has to donate to us. We do this for free. We even support other people that we find. And so to answer further your question, yes, sometimes we do support people. Not a big deal. We make donations to people and we think are doing a good job. And we do it sometimes anonymously. And sometimes we have lunch with you and pat you on the back. Yes, that is true. So,
well, go ahead and finish your thought.
Well, it's just that we're not wealthy, and I'm certainly not wealthy. But let us just say that Betsy is one of the most amazing entrepreneurs I've ever known, and she's the strategist here. She's the leader here. I am just the big mouth spokesperson, and I want to make perfectly clear: I did not solve the Cicada 3301 riddle. I only solved what the words said, which are on the front page of the riddle, and that was only because I have a good sense of what the political lay of the land is, and we've already been saying some of these. That's the reason that those people contacted us. They contacted us like we contact other people to pat us on the back and demonstrate to us with proof. They can't stop giving us proof. They also have fed us so much information we put on our sites that you can vet all this stuff yourself, folks.
Let me get right to that. Because people are really interested in the QAnon thing. You donate to people, and you mentioned, I'll just tell people, you mentioned you're going to go ahead and send me a donation because you like my show. You've been telling me how much you like my show, which is great. And that's what you said way back in the day, too. And you invited me over for a meal. This is when I start to get suspicious. When people,
yes, that's because you're a smart guy.
Okay. When people want to give me money and have me over for a meal and to pat me on the back, I'm thinking, well, what am I being paid to say? What direction am I being patted in, etc. And I've had people reach out to me, claim to have information about Q, giving me money. Everybody wants. I know, and I don't, and I still am. Because they want me to believe their information. They want, they'll say, "Oh, you're right on it." Nobody does it like you do. And I think to myself, I don't know what's going on here. So I want to know with you. I mean, what does it take to? What do you expect for the money? I mean, things are financial, right? I mean, what do you expect to get a return for that?
No, have we given you any money?
But you said you're going to.
I didn't say I was going to. I said we do that to people for people.
You mentioned you were going to send a donation my way, I believe, right? We've been communicating by email as well, right?
Yes.
So yeah. So I'm just saying. I know you haven't told me to do anything. It's just because you like the show and stuff. But what do you expect to get in return from those people you do support? And do you want to tell us who those people are?
I hope I don't expect anything. That you're ruthlessly honest, just like we are. Period. And that means on me too. Right now, I want you to be ruthlessly honest and to rip apart anything that I'm saying that you don't think is true, because that's what this is all about. There's one battle, and that battle is inside the human being and consciousness as well as geopolitically.
Amen. I agree. And we're getting to a lot of things. So let's talk about. I want to go back. There are a lot of different questions, and hopefully I keep them all on the top of my head. One thing you said when you were being recruited into the intelligence services is that they offered you a program for people with a little bit of the extra, the ESP kind of thing going on, the man who stare at goats thing. And I know that one of the things that's out there are people looking for people with high IQs with some psychic ability, and they want to, or some, some different kind of people like me, I think. And so I don't know if that's why you reached out to me. So what is that? And is Cicada also looking for the same thing? And that's why I'm scared of anybody who wants to even give me information, because I know there's people can get targeted for having those abilities. And you mentioned a vision? I want to talk about that. How did they know? Was there testing that they gave you that let them know that you had some of that going on?
You see, again, these are good questions, and nobody asks these questions, and these are the questions to ask. So, Cicada is a group of people, some of whom were in all three of those areas I described, both the psychic area, the linguist area, and the mechanical kind of thing. And also there's an operations group, that these people then go out and do things, right? And they can be taken from all three of those fields at once. So is Cicada doing that? Yes, in a way, but they're looking for the good people, not to recruit them for the government. And when you find the ultimate goal, which a number of the people who solve the riddles have found the goal, and when I was vetting them, I went onto the internet, and you can follow this. It's very easy to find. I could give you a few clues. Yeah, I was given 2 clues, and in a matter of minutes, I figured out what was going on. So it's not hard to find, but then you got to solve the clues for Cicada. And if you solve the clues in the yearly, not yearly, but every once in a while they put out a puzzle, and yes, they're going to contact you if you're really, really smart. And they're going to basically say to you, they're not going to recruit you to do much unless you are interested in helping them with stopping surveillance, stopping the squelching of free speech, stopping the corruption, and stopping the war. If you're someone who's interested in that, which is what the first Q was actually saying, that was the message of the first Q, same message as Cicada 3301. If that's your agenda, then they may invite you, I am told. And now, mind you, I've talked to a number of these people, okay? So I have direct physical contact. I've had contact with a bunch of these people in this group, and there are actually groups inside the groups, and I'm not really part of that group. They reached out to us, and now we get to see the effects, and then they tell us ahead of time what's about to happen, and then we go and see it happen, and you just go, how can anybody do that? You have to be really smart to do that. Can't be me. I don't know any of that stuff. So what I'm saying is, yes, the NSA certainly has been putting out puzzles. That's the way they found some of these people. And that's why they went in to the NSA. And yes, those puzzles, some are government and some aren't. And in our age, Nathan, you're nailing it. This is about discernment. How should you know if somebody's tricking you? Let me just give you an example. Do you know how many times Jason Goodman contacted me, which I said on the tape, which he recorded without my permission and broadcast without my permission, which is a crime. He also accused me of threatening to kill him, which is a crime, that kind of false accusation. But then again, he's in a court case with Robert David Steele. He's been in fights with Queen Tut, with Trish, with all these people. He's destroyed so many people. He had called me, and his followers, which I knew were fake, called, and I don't know how many times. They didn't call me, excuse me. To get to me normally, unless I get to you and I just call you up. I'm not going to mince words. So if you get through to Betsy, which is easy to do, and her team, and she brings it to my attention, and she's vetted it with her people to know that it's not a trick, then she brings it to me. Okay, you know how many times she brought me the message from Jason Goodman personally and showed it to me that he wanted an interview with me? 6 times. You know how many times his followers did? I don't know, another dozen. I wouldn't do it. I knew who he was to a degree. I was vetting him at the very moment that he called me up. And that's the reason I said, I know who you are. But I wasn't going to call him out. I don't wish to destroy anybody. I'm not playing that dox game, and I'm not part of the shill people who are in the alt media paid by Hollywood. And we've already shown all the evidence. So if you really wanted to know who Jason was and what he's about, and that really is a concern for you, then go to Truth News Headlines, put in the search Jason Goodman. You'll come to Patriots for Truth, or go to Patriots for Truth, put in Jason Goodman. You will see 5 movies made where he is the person in the movies talking about his misdeeds. I don't even want to go into them. So I said to Jason, I know who you are, and I'm giving you a warning. If you don't stop, because I'd just been talked to by some people who were very upset with him, right? And so all this drama going on, this started because I threw down the gauntlet about senior executive service and said, if you don't address this, folks, then ask your intelligence source about this. If they don't address it, they're probably part of it. And then when Q came up, that was the excuse to attack us. But the point is that Jason, look, his site's been taken down a second time. I can tell you why. It's out there on the internet. All you got to do is Google it. Then he went over to his other thing he can't post. And then his buddy accused him of a massive crime with the FBI are still investigating. And then he accused his buddy of a massive crime. And then his buddy beat it out of town. And his buddy calls me and tries to... No. None. That's silliness. But the deal is, it's a war. And if you think that the Hollywood people who own the mainstream media do not have fake people in the alt media, pinch yourself and wake up.
Now, didn't you tell me, Doug, that you work in Hollywood too, though, that you do some composing, because you do music as well, right?
To a degree, yes. I've been involved in quite a few projects, and yes, I'm a musician, I'm a playwright, but here's the deal. I'm sorry, I drifted off. State your question again, please.
You said Hollywood was a problem.
Yes.
And I was just mentioning...
I'm sorry, I get your question.
Work in Hollywood.
Because of my association with Star Wars, because of my association with Indiana Jones, all that stuff. So here's the deal. If you go out...
Oh, so didn't you tell me, I'm just recalling our conversations, didn't you tell me that you compose music?
Yes.
And that you were working on a TV show at the time? Didn't you tell me something like that back when we spoke last year?
Yes, and I don't know how much, I don't remember how much I told you. But
well, just tell me the truth.
The HBO series, there was an HBO series that took from some of that. So yes, there's a lot of this stuff out there. So I'm going to give the geniuses out there a clue. Okay? Sophia Music is connected to Cicada 3301, right?
Right, exactly.
Just follow that. And then
right.
when you get looking, you'll see that Cicada before had a different group name, and that the group name changes based upon each year. And the year that they released Q, it was because it was in the alphabetic order. So
okay. Now people are asking themselves, okay, so you say you're not a part of Cicada on one hand, but then you write music puzzles that are part of Cicada puzzles, right?
No. Let me be very perfectly clear about that. I am not part of Cicada. Cicada approached me. Cicada and their leaders have been doing almost the same work I've been doing in my private life for a long, long time. We have crossed paths. I have literally met these people in the past, had a sense for who they might be, and now they tell me and prove to me, because I tell them, wait a second, were you the person I met here and there under these conditions? And then they say yes, and then I say, well, tell me more about that. For example, a ship. I met this person who was the captain of a ship a long, long time ago on a top secret island. I can name the island if you want, Shimmy, Alaska. The point is, I was there, the ship came up, nobody's supposed to be able to land there. I met this person, the most interesting person in the world. That person is connected in a very deep way to Cicada 3301. I met that person again later and had a very clear sense who they were. And that person basically had showed up to pat me on the back, I guess. And that's what happens. These people are so intuitive that what they prove to me every day, and I talk to these people every day, a number of them, okay? So
these people, okay. So you mentioned leadership. You mentioned these people. You mentioned the people showing up, and I can, it's true. Like for people out there, they find people. There are Cicada is an intelligence operation. I mean, they know about things. They use puzzles to get information about people, to find specific kinds of people. And there's a distinct possibility based on your IQ scores, similar with me, that somebody was keeping an eye on you for a long time and might have stopped by to say hi. Now, you say Cicada, so that means Cicada goes back in history a little ways. And you said that how does a person know that they're talking to Cicada and not somebody in our U.S. intelligence forces who are going to say almost exactly the same thing? How do you know?
That's a good point.
That's Cicada.
That's a good point. The way that they demonstrated to me is how can I tell you this? I mean, you're not going to believe it. Okay, I just have to tell you the point-blank truth, okay? They speak in a language I don't know, and I understand it. And then I tell them what they say, and then they add on to that, and what they're talking about is in my life. So even if they were surveilling my life, they'd have to be surveilling my mind to be able to tell me through this type of communication to prove to me, and they've done this repeatedly, or other things all the time happening to constantly prove that they're not spying on me per se. They're not asking me to do anything. That's how you know. I get okay, Nathan. There you go. See, you're asking the best questions. Nobody's asked me. How would you know? If they're asking you to do something, you might be being played. Nobody's asking me to do nothing. Nothing.
Okay. All right. I'm starting to get it. So these guys are connected to the source in some way as well. Would you say that?
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? Okay. So they're the type of people that would be very highly valued intelligence assets, right, for our U.S. government or otherwise.
Yes.
Is that right? And they would have some specialized abilities that very, very few people on this planet have, and the ones that have been identified are highly sought after, one way or the other, either to get killed or to be recruited. One thing or another thing. So I think I get that. Why are you allowed to talk about it, though? I mean, why would you be able to talk about it? And how do those people just understand what it's like to be targeted when you're not part of the team? How do those people get off the team to get to this higher level, or is that a spiritual thing where they've gotten above, where they've gotten above, where they're protected?
You mean how do they get out of the government and then they're protected in this group?
How are they protected given that these are high value targets for intelligence? Like, how can you, once you're in the CIA, you don't leave, right? I mean, and if you go rogue, they kill you. So these guys are the type of people that would be the world's best intelligence assets, but they're not. So how are they safe? How can they communicate with somebody like you and then have you talk about it? I mean, because somebody finds out these people are talking to you, then they're going to go into your life. I mean, how do you feel comfortable talking about it if these are the people that you think they are?
First off, they're not doing anything illegal. So we're not hiding anything. Second off, they chose me as a new spokesman, I guess. But the people who've already passed the Cicada, they were their spokesperson. So if you look up the other people who passed the test, they show you the whole thing. It's all there on the internet. You can look at movie after movie after movie. This is very real. How do they hide? Well, this was, of course, my question. How do they protect themselves? Well, okay. Let's say that these folks are, let's theoretically, okay? you know, whenever someone says that, I had a dream. Theoretically, let's say that you could work on a cell phone with an app that no one could penetrate. It's not even a computer, and you are so smart that you can use these devices that actually the government uses. So these are people who knew how to use these things, and they get out. That's where your rogue cyber warriors come from, whether it be Unit 8200, whether it be our own cyber network. or cyber security force here in America. Once they learn all that stuff and they get out, they can do things you can't imagine because all of our computers have a ME on the back, a mechanical engine on every single microchip. And if you know the code, and literally they tell me the code, it's only this long. To get into anybody's computer is a series of numbers this long. And everyone who signs up to work with the government in anything with computers, they have to all do non-disclosure agreement, and they have to allow this back door in. So these people have the ability to make something appear on your screen and then disappear to send you a message. They have the ability to call you on a phone that cannot be traced, no matter what. They have the ability to use a telephone better than most people can use, the biggest computer in the world. And I've seen this happen. And they've given us, they take their phone, okay, there you go. What did you just do? I just grabbed 33,000 Freedom of Information Act documents on what you wanted and sent it to the secure account. And I'm saying, you're on a telephone. The person says, yes. And if I told you who that person was, you would say I was lying. And I don't want to get them in any more trouble because let us just say that individual I'm talking about is one of the most powerful people in the resistance. And he's one of the humble guys. Okay? Now, some of these geniuses get in, and I say they make, so you can go see, I think the guy's name was L or Z or something. They make these things showing you what happens once Cicada contacts you. But to go back to your question, how do they stay hidden? Every time I get a call from these people, it's from a different place. I've never received a call from them ever from the same place. And they said, oh no, we know you're being recorded. That's not a problem. We know that you're being surveilled. That's not a problem. And then they laugh. Remember, these are the people who took down Q.pub, the Great Awakening site, and 8chan all at once, and then left a message, message number 975 that said, aim for truth, that's us, we were right. And then they pointed us even further in a direction. And they said the reason we were right because we'd already said all these things and had been saying them for a long time, both about Q and its origins, as well as SES and other things. And so we get a message from them. It pops up on my screen. You tell me how this happens. A bottle. A message comes out. It unscrolls and it says, let me see if I get the exact words. We love Betsy and Thomas. They're being mean to you. Seconds after they tell us to go to those sites, and I'm sitting there going, I don't understand this. And then my people are calling me, saying, explaining it to me because I don't understand it. And then I get this message, okay? How about that? How about a message pinned to the tree?
And you got that after you made the revelation about Q? Is that when? Because I thought you said you were in touch with them already.
Yeah, we already were. And
you already, so you got that message that popped up on your screen saying they're being mean to you, though. That they were only being mean to you after you had already made that revelation, right?
No, they were being mean to us about SES. They were being mean to us. People were attacking us. Jerome Corsi wrote a note saying, aim for truth is wrong about Q. I have determined that the trip codes are the same, and therefore that is the way it is. Other people had attacked us. So many people had tried to get interviews, and we now find out that some of them are shills. And so just as you said, you can't trust anything, really, when it comes down to it. You have to be very, very, very careful. But I can tell you, as I said before, I'm not being asked to do anything. And I'm not asking you to do anything. What am I asking you to do? Be truthful. Period. Done. Now.
No. That's right. You're not. And let me ask you a question. I didn't mean to cut you off. I was wondering what people have to do to get some of that money you're giving out to people. So but I won't do anything for it. But I'll take it.
Wait, no, I'm going to get in trouble with that. Let me point out that we have helped people in great need. And not when I say we, and not we, Betsy. And that is, we're not making that offer to people. And so when we say, we'd like to pat you on the back and, support you, and that's like, take you to lunch, talk to you, point you in the right direction, give you information, like they're doing to me. What are they doing to us? They're giving me anything I want. If
Right.
I say I want to know what's on this list in the Congress, they go after it. If I say I need stuff on Serco, they give me more stuff than I can go through. They have already given us more stuff than we can possibly go through at this point. And so they're giving. They're not asking anything.
Right.
They've asked
Right.
nothing.
Right. No, I understand. I understand, but you still have to trust that the information you're getting is, all the information. And I don't know that there's a way to verify, necessarily to verify one way or the other. You are equating cicada with Q at this point, right?
Well, let me be clear both on what you just said and where you're headed. First off, everything they send us is open source, and it's Freedom of Information Act responses, and so nothing they're sending us isn't available. But there's nobody else on the earth that I know that can do that, or in that way, or have all that set up, or have already been working in the resistance in this fashion. So we've had everything we get, but we don't have to vet so much from them because it's already vetted. It's a friggin' government document that anyone can get, but you would sure have trouble getting it yourself. Now, what was the second question?
Equating Q and cicada.
Yeah. Now, therein lies the problem. Let me describe and the reason that I think that the reason I really wanted to interview with you, and I've turned down so many interviews, I can't count all of them, is because you were so close. All you need is this little piece of puzzle I'm going to give you. Okay. And it's because DeFango is kind of hard to deal with. They call him the boy man for nothing. And when I talked with him, and this is where he confused you, I believe. I don't think he said it quite clear. I listened to your broadcast. So he said that, and you busted him. You said, but wait a second. You said you knew this person before you had the interview with him. Yeah, well, 3-4 hours before, I'd been on the phone with him, okay, and I was vetting him, and let's just say, I don't want to get too many details, but let's just say that he vetted 100% to be exactly who he is. Now, let me say who he is. He is a guy who's good at puzzles, okay? That's what he does. And he loves all these cryptology things. He's not really into the message of Q. He never wrote any Q messages. He was at a conference, and maybe you can correct me on this. I think it's called a DEF CON conference. Not like the kind of DEF CON I was into, which is, we're going on alert.
Defense. I think it's like defense convention. It's some kind. It's where hackers go. People are into. Dave Acton is in the chat. He's one guy who would be able to tell you exactly what DEF CON is. But
Dave Acton is still going.
He's in the chat. There are a lot of questions for you in the chat. He's
my goodness! We'll tell Dave Acton he probably doesn't want to talk to me because I know who he is, and don't give me the chance to reveal you, Dave. You better just hit the road anyway. So
great. This would be great. Taking calls later, by the way, everybody.
Let me say.
So go ahead.
Wait a second. DeFango solved. By the way, the cicada cues go in alphabetical order. I forget which one he solved. He did videos on it, and then he showed you all the clues, and he got to it, and then they made him. They sent him the telephone number. He went to the place. He got the call. He met them. He went to lunch with them. He does videos on all this, and then in the end, I hate to say this, but because I'm with you and we're really revealing the truth of all this. Look at the videos DeFango did. You will see what the big intent is of Cicada 3301. It is an artifact. So what you're doing is you are on a puzzle, like one of these echo things where you do it all over the world. You have to participate with other people in the world to even figure this out. And he did, and he proved it in his videos. Now, when he got it figured out, they invited him, and they had lunch with him, and they patted him on the back, and they said, hey, and he says this in his videos, they said, first off, we want you to hold this artifact. And, DeFango, it's like, yeah, hey, cool, man. Okay, yeah, well, okay, what's next?
The Spear of Destiny.
Thank you very much.
Right,
so,
got it.
Then they show him a document, which is on vellum, and that it's in code, and nobody really knows what it says except the inner group, and the inner group says, can you decode this? And DeFango goes, no, I can't decode this. So that was that. Now, DeFango before that, I believe, actually, I don't know that. We'd have to ask him. But at some point when he was at that DEF CON, he stood up and made this recommendation. And the recommendation was, hey, why don't we do something to, like the French resistance did, where we send out messages everywhere, broadcast, Radio Free Europe and all that. We broadcast this and we put messages inside for the faithful, for the resistance, and it's in a code. And that will be the new code. That'll be the cool thing. That should be the thing we should do. Well, they had people in the room who were part of Cicada that said, that's a darn good idea. So they went back and they built the strategy on exactly that. And what is the strategy? Clear message. When this message ended, that's when Q ended its association with Cicada 3300, because the war started in October. It went through to November. And by the words of the new on 8chan in January 2nd, it said, we've been compromised completely. And they had. So the first Q had been kicked out. And if you look at the tone, we had months before the conclave, let us call it I like to call it the man cave too. The man cave told me, you ought to talk about this. I said, I'm not talking about this. I said, well, you already had an opinion about this. I have a very strong opinion about this. And so they said, well, you got to get this on record. So I put it on record. I said who I thought it was and what was going on.
Okay. All right. Let me just make sure everybody's clear about what you're saying.
Okay.
Because DeFango kind of said this too. So you already had an association with the Cicada people. I'm still not sure where that came about, but you already had an association with them. And you were chosen. So DeFango solved a puzzle. And you're saying that Q is Q because we're in year Q of Cicada puzzles, if it's by year at least, which means Cicada puzzles go back, I don't know math that well, 13, 14, 15 years. I don't know which letter Q is in the alphabet. Is that all about right so far?
Pretty close, but they started, it didn't start at A, and it started in 2010, and there were puzzles under other names. And so if you go back to the P, can you name that? Or if I name it, I don't think it's a terrible thing to reveal.
Stuff. Go Pizzagate?
pi.mobi.
pi.mobi. And what's that?
That's the original puzzlers who became Cicada.
Oh, okay.
Well, it's not original. That was one of their puzzle groups. They have a number of puzzle groups. But that's the P. Pi for pi. And Moby for Mobius, I assume. I don't know. I didn't ask him that, but I went, oh, dude, or dude and dudettes, because there are women in this, of course. Am I right? And then I tell them what I find out from vetting, and then they laugh, and then they say, but did you see this? Did you see that? And did you see this in there and that in there? And then I go back and it's in there, or they tell me the answer to the riddle. They tell me they wanted us to participate with them just just to basically pat us on the back and say, is there anything they can do for us? Is there anything that we need them to do? And we're like, wow, you guys are really amazing. We don't even know. We're still in shock. But anyway, the point is, DeFango was right. He got to the artifact. He couldn't decode the vellum message,
right.
Which, by the way, I didn't look at it, but I did tell Cicada 3301 what was on it, and they said that I was correct. So once again, without even seeing it, I was able to know, not guess, but know what was on it. And the reason I know what was on it is because of the artifact itself and what I would know would have to be on that vellum if it was real. And I believe that this artifact is real. I don't know that it's the spear that actually stabbed the side of Christ, but I'm certain that it is a real artifact because my description of what was on that vellum, they said that what I said was correct, so that I know pretty much for sure when I see that vellum, I can tell you whether or not that is a true artifact. And the reason is because I studied Templar cryptology, and I'll leave it at that. And I don't know many people who ever studied Templar cryptology, but the original Templar Knights had a form of writing a check. You could write it in Paris, encode it on a piece of paper, take it to Venice, and they'd give you the money that said on that piece of paper you gave to them at St. Denis in Paris. Only a few people knew those codes. So I studied those codes, and that's the reason I knew that. But I also derived some answers to their puzzles, and that's the reason I think they like me. But they're just patting us, especially Betsy and her strategies. They're patting and what she's doing, and the fact that she loves everybody and she helps everybody, and DeFango shouldn't be looked down upon. He wasn't telling you a lie. He was a little confused with what he was telling you. So when I heard what he said to you, it was a little mixed up.
It's not what you explained, though. It's not what you explained, and there are a lot of things. Everything you said, I have questions. But what happened with DeFango is we had talked about talking to you before I knew you were Thomas Paine of American Intelligence Media. I just saw somebody talking about Q, who is Thomas Paine of American Intelligence Media, say he was a cryptologist, and his name is Thomas. So I talked to him on the phone before, and I said, DeFango, is this Thomas the same Thomas that we both know and we both talked about before? And he said, no, you're crazy. And I said, no, seriously, it's the same person. And he keeps telling me, no. He says, you're wrong. So what is that about? And then in the interview, you guys pretended like you never knew each other, but you did know him from before. So what happened there? Explain that, because you approached the interview as if you'd never known him before. So were you pretending to be a different person, or were you making DeFango think that you were two different people, or was that being obstructed for some other reason? Because you guys clearly have a longer standing relationship of some sort than just now. You're both related to Cicada, right? He was picked to talk about Cicada now, be the voice of Cicada on the internet. They did this false flag where he got the fake Seth Rich files, where the guy fake destroyed his computer and he was supposed to blow up on the internet, and then I busted that too. But why did that thing happen? Why did that thing happen where you guys know each other from before and that was obscured or totally or a story was made up about it? What happened?
Well, that's why I'm telling you, he didn't solve the puzzle. He doesn't know the full picture, and there are multiple Thomases. And so He has been talking to two different people. When I met him, that was the first time ever.
Okay. All right. So if that's the case, he didn't solve the puzzle. So I'm not a puzzle solver. Okay. I have a high IQ and would be targeted for other reasons, but I don't do these puzzles. But for some reason, I got invited to your house, and I think it was to talk to me about maybe working for that group. And are you telling me then I'm wrong about that? Because
no,
you say
you were invited to a member of Cicada's house.
Okay, then I see. Not yours. Okay. Well, that's interesting too. So I was invited which is what I thought.
You were literally invited to exactly what you were told.
Okay. Well,
there are more than one Thomas.
Okay. Okay. All right. Are you the Thomas I spoke with on the phone back then, or was that somebody else? Sounded the same.
No.
Cryptologist and all that stuff.
That's
okay.
Yeah.
All right. Just want to make sure. So DeFango didn't pass the test. That makes sense because, you made him out to be a genius in that interview. I was thinking to myself.
Oh, he didn't pass the last test. I don't expect anybody to pass the last test, to be quite frank with you. And if they do, then whoa. They would themselves feel that was the reward. As a matter of fact, someday, when I see this vellum, it will be the complete reward for me. So if you understand what it is, then it is incredibly powerful. And I don't mean to believe that it is literally, the spear that stabbed the side of Christ. That isn't it. It's about the Templars. It's about what the Templars represent, who the Templars were, and all the fact that they were like the cryptologists of the ancient days, the old days, who created checks. Our entire banking system is based upon the Templars. So DeFango, I love DeFango because he's a wild man, and I love the wild ones. But and he's not that confused. He's so close. He just didn't get the very, very last piece of the puzzle. And there's a reason why you have to pass that test, and I don't know that I will ever be invited to pass that test, to be quite frank with you, because just as you said, these people, not me, have to stay hidden because they are assets and they must stay hidden. Absolutely. And they probably, I don't know this, but yes, I think what you said was probably true. They probably were culled from as the harvest from the bright ones out there, and then literally, co-opted into the military and so on and so forth. I haven't asked some of them that. I know that some of them had incredible positions like that, but I also have people in the conclave like that. So there's DeFango. I think he's a genius because so few people have figured it out. And once I saw what he had to go through to figure out that puzzle, I realized I'm an idiot compared to that.
So genuinely, then, I just can't see DeFango doing anything that smart, brilliant to me. I mean, I guess he's good with computers and stuff, but I see the way he writes, and usually people, can do both things at the same time. So I didn't know how he could solve puzzles. You think is he actually a good puzzle solver?
Oh my God, he's one of the best. He's. I've met many. And another thing we do is we look at idiot savants. So I have been for many decades, a person called to look at idiot savants to see if there's ways that we can help them, because of I had certain connections to such things, especially when I was young. And so you can look at him and you can say, he may cuss, he may have a little lack of, he may seem like he's got a little Tourette's or he's got a lack of impulse control. Well, you know what? When you meet a genius, an idiot savant, you won't believe them. I could describe people to you that you'd say, there cannot be people like that. He's one of those. Now, how many other people have completely solved the puzzle and got taken to the last question, the last puzzle? I think only like 3, right?
There's a handful, huh? So he really is. Okay, well, that's interesting to know about DeFango. You're calling him an idiot savant. It's not a bad thing. It just means you're a genius in a different way, kind of, right? Like Rain Man.
I knew the real Rain Man. He was in a home in Copake, New York, and you could say to him any number. It doesn't matter, whatever. The second you get the last number out of your mouth, multiply 34,000 times 20. He had it. But he was in this community protected to make sure people never did that to him. And so the movie that was written about him, where they took him out of that community, it was horrible. That was a horrible thing. These people are protected in these communities. They're a special type called a Camp Hill community. They have nothing to do with the government. They don't even take government money. And they protect these people. So I've known a lot of these people. And he isn't really an extraordinary idiot savant per se. He just happens to be a savant with cryptology. And the rest of it, really, he's a good, honest person. And everything he said about me that he knows of, that he is aware of, is true. But he's a little confused about some of the things. And when he hears this tape, he's going to be very upset that the fact that there are multiple Thomases and what I just told you. Because he wasn't told some things. Why? Because he's going to go tell everybody.
Right. I understand. Okay. I understand. Well, then there's some secrecy involved too with Cicada. What does Cicada want with me? Since I was invited over to one of their houses, what do they want with me?
Because you're good. You are very, very good. And so what we wanted with you was the same thing. Say, keep on going. Keep, make a connection with you and say, here's our stuff if you need it, and promote you. I think we're going to probably put this out for you, and we want to promote you. We want to get your word out. We want truth to go out. So we do that. But there's other people we do it for, too, a bunch of people, 20 other sites.
So one of those is Victoris Libertas, right? Because for one of the first things when I first met you was you said you might be able to get me an interview with Victoris Libertas. The other thing was get an interview with Robert David Steele, which I just said no because I didn't, I wasn't that interested. So was Victoris Libertas then one of those channels that you helped start out, and because they did grow, and what does it mean? You help get the word out. There's something Cicada does or something Q does in order to make things trend. You guys have some tricks, right? And that's what happened with Q, is that you guys are able to game the system somehow. And that's what you would be able to offer for someone like me, or I'm proposing, just because it was mentioned to me early on, is this Victoris Libertas. Am I right about that? First of all, that they're someone that's on the Cicada team, and then in their case, it shows that it's unavoidable that some people get their channel shut down, and that has not, and Cicada can't protect them from it. It seems like. So, am I right about that? And
yes,
am I right?
Yeah. First off, I'm not a member of Cicada. They have adopted me as their stray dog, I guess. And second off, what we do and what I was doing with you was to say, hey, maybe to help your channel, let's talk to these people. Let's broaden the network. Now, other people that are recommended, some of them may be really, really good for you. Others might not. But the point is that they were topical, that they were, as you say, trending, and that they could help you. So right now, there may be other people that we will suggest to you that we may not want to interview for whatever reason. That maybe would be good for you. So we start to network and this kind of stuff. And no, we cannot say that anybody that we're recommending is part of Cicada. To be quite frank with you, besides these people who solve the Cicada puzzles, I don't know anybody that's directly connected to Cicada per se. Now, does Cicada have the ability to come on and help with all kinds of technical stuff and hacking? I don't know. All I know is that sometimes Anonymous, who has been following us since day one, since our first articles. Our articles have been read by Anonymous so many times I can't count it. They take our exact article, they read it word for word, and they say they Anonymous, the whole thing, and blah, blah, blah. Then they contact us, and then we don't know. And then all three people who said they owned the 4chan, 8chan for Q had contacted us before anybody else contacted us. We had Corsi invite us half a dozen times, I don't know. Jason Goodman many, many times. I can't list at least all these people, almost everybody, name anybody practically, the big names, all begged us to come on their show. And I said no, because I couldn't, in some cases, vet them. And as you say, if you do certain things wrong, especially right now, you're gone. You're just gone. You'll either be, I don't need to go into that. You know all about that. We can't be demonetized because we don't take money. We don't need that. And we want to connect people. Now, I can tell you that there is a group of people that are certainly part of the conclave. As a matter of fact, there are conclave members who run sites, but they are not personalities. But they run these sites. And so, yes, there's a whole group of people in the alternative media who work together. When we started off, we were invited into a group of 20. So what we're trying to do with you and others is say, how can we help you? And we don't want to give you stuff that, we say, here's this, what's good for you, And the deal is we're searching for truth, and we're trying to help everybody get the truth. That's why we say everything we do is completely open. You can take anything Aim for Truth does and do anything you want with it. We can't keep track of all the people, including Anonymous and all these other people. They make films and they embed our stuff in it, or they do talks, or they read things. We have tons of people doing this. So when you see our numbers, that is nothing. That is nothing. Hundreds of thousands of other hits are happening because people take it and embed it in their stuff, and it doesn't come back to YouTube. Because why? YouTube is one channel, one thing we work on. We have lots of other ways to get news out. So that's what that networking is about. But no, the people I approached you about before, and even Robert David Steele, even at this point, yes, I know these people. These people call me. A lot of people call me and talk to me all the time. They are not members of the conclave. Some are who run sites. Robert David Steele is not one of them. None of the people you mentioned are. I couldn't even give you their names because they don't give their names out. But yes, we are aligned with those kind of people. And we would put you in contact with them the more and more you thought that we were trustworthy, and we're going to vet anything we give you. We're not going to send you a piece of garbage with some kind of, which we get all the time. We have to have experts go through our messages, and the reason we can't open most things, a lot of things, is because we are being attacked all the time, and people embed things in a picture that will take down our ability to even post. These are very sophisticated attacks, but as you say, it seems as if Anonymous and other groups have come to our aid again and again. For instance, look at what just happened to Jerome Corsi and Jason Goodman. They had a hacking of their emails, and those emails are so damnable that it took Jason Goodman down. He got the second strike against him, and he can't do live stream for 80 days, and now he can't post, according to him. And then Jerome Corsi was called out because, according to these, they're implying that the people who pay him the most money get to find out who the real Q is. Now, I'm sorry. I'm going to have to say this in your show because you're an honest guy, and I'm not using you. Is it okay if I talk about
Go ahead.
Jerome Corsi?
Yeah, that's great. Go ahead.
Now, what I'm about to say is somewhat terrible, but I can't help but say it. And I won't say the other person's name. On a mainstream alternative media network, Jerome Corsi was in an interview talking about Tom Mellick, I think his name is, being grabbed by the Mueller gang, and he disappeared. They wouldn't talk about the fact that Q had been taken down on all 3 sites. But during the conversation, some reason, Jerome Corsi burst into this statement. I know who Q is. And Alex was trying to talk over him, so he talked again. He says, no, I know exactly who Q is. I know the person. I know his name. I know he works in Army intelligence in the Pentagon, and he works with a group of people. And then Alex had to one-up him. Oh, I said it out loud.
That's all right.
The
Go
other
ahead.
person had to one-up him and say, I know his name. I've talked with him. I know what. And I'm thinking, those guys just committed a crime, because a leak is a crime. If they know who the leaker is, they're complicit with the crime. So what happens? The next day, I think it was, or 2 days later, those emails come out of Corsi saying who it is, and he calls him Jack with a K, or Jack from Army Intelligence. And so here are these, of course he said they're fake emails, but he also came out and said that his emails were hacked. He said this on air. And so now he says, no, I don't. Now he's come out and publicly said, I don't know who Q is. I never said I know who Q is. I never said I know where he works. I never said he was in the Pentagon. I never said his name was Jack. And yet on the last Q drop, or two Q drops ago, when they had the 975, which had our name on it, and said Sessions is the scumbag, we looked, and Sessions turned his blind eye 3 times in 3 committees to allow the CFIUS purchase, the CFIUS group, looking at the purchase of Uranium One. Sessions had to allow that. So that group, whoever took down Q in the 3 spots and mentioned our name and said we were right about scumbag Sessions, we looked and found it was even more true. But right across from that was a post that said, at Jack. Because whoever hacked them was also saying, Corsi, we're coming after you, and then it was all at Jack were the emails. And so there was hacking going on. Hacking's illegal. I don't know anything about it, honest to God. I can't hack. I don't even know how to work the machine, let alone hack it. I don't know any hackers, and none of the people I'm working with say they're hackers or anything like that. So there's nothing illegal going on from our point of view, from anything. I wouldn't have anything to do with it. Simply because, yes, I was in the NSA, a long time ago, but it doesn't matter. You have to be careful because, as what was it Schumer said, you don't mess with the intelligence community. They have 9 ways to Sunday to come after you. Yeah, that's correct. That's why Trump is in a war with the intelligence community. And Q, in my opinion, with the new dumps, are just saying war, 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 and then they show some anonymous posts of somebody else, which are horrible anti-Semitic posts. And then they're going into bashing the Pope and saying the Pope's going down in May. And all this bashing of Christians and Jews, we predicted. Why did we predict? Because people inside of Cicada told us that when these people come back online, they are going to have to work really, really hard because Netanyahu wants that war now. Because if you look at their puzzles, they predicted that these fighter planes, stealth fighter planes, would fly over Iran and win, if you actually can figure out Cicada's puzzles. And it did, and that was a prediction. That wasn't inside intelligence. And now look at this. Netanyahu is not flying stealth bombers and stealth attack fighters over Iran for nothing. And if you look at what's going on, we are at the edge of a war. Netanyahu may get us into a war, and he is not really leading the Jewish people. He leads. I don't use the word Zionist. I use the word the Greater Israel Project. Now, there's a whole lot of Christians and Muslims and sure Jews and everybody else is involved in Zionism. True, but when you're talking about the Greater Israel Project, you're talking about a few people who are warlords, And those are the ones we're trying to stop. This has nothing to do with trying to accuse Israel of something. And you know that Jerome Corsi went nuts when somebody accused him of being Mossad. I mean, he literally went bonkers, right? But now we had to post an article about him showing that he has been working even with the Rothschilds and other Israeli bankers to open Israeli banks. We gave all the information. We showed who wrote his books, when they were released, and why. And the man that they're talking about there, Bill Dufty, was a personal close friend of mine, very, very dear friend of mine in the front of the article. So I know the article is true. And you can vet that stuff. We vetted it. It's true. But I'm not going after Corsi. I'm going after the people who will believe Q above their own elected president. And they're banging the drums of war, folks. We predicted that because we were told by Cicada that would be their agenda the second they got back up on and broadcasting these silly drops. So we went and we looked at the drops. And the drops, if you just simply take the sentences and you take out all the gobbledygook, which kind of softens you up to hear the sentences, these are commands. And the commands tell you, literally, you can only believe Q. Q knows everything. Then it says, and then it's telling you to go to war. It's telling you to hate Jews. It's telling you, so I'm done with it. I'm done with those Q posts.
Let me, well, I've been done with them for a long time. And I've been saying on my channel, and, you know, I covered what you said about Q being a PSYOP basically at this point, because it's what I was saying a long time ago. I said it was a puzzle a long time ago. It's weird. So some people are going to comment anti-Semitism, you know, hearing that thrown around. People say that about people who talk about Zionism and the Greater Israel Project. You're doing something funny because you're saying on one hand, people are being anti-Jewish or anti-Semitic. On the other hand, the PSYOP is meant to support Israel's war on Iran or the Greater Israel Project. And so this is a good time to get to the philosophy, and you can tell me whether this comes from Q or if Q told you this, but that basically the current Q operation is an Israeli intelligence operation directed, and we can talk about specifically at evangelicals, but in order to provide cover for war with Iran. Now, how would that be anti-Semitic at the same time, since it's basically an operation on behalf of Israel?
Yes, these are very good questions. I love your questions. That's why I was so anxious to come on the show. This is the confusion. No, we are not saying that we know who took over the Q original post. We're saying we know who started them because it's been proven to us, and we've put it up on our sites and shown you the proof. And we believe it. If we're wrong, well, they must be pretty smart, because every person in the conclave now says, oh no, this is perfectly clear. So so we're not saying who did it. We don't know who did it. But we did say recently that...
You said 8,200.
Well, yes. We were saying that this is the biggest PSYOPs ever after only Facebook. So who is it that would be interested in doing this? And would they may or may not be supporting Israel, even though they may be rogue Unit 8200. And what their interests are in this, I'm not exactly sure, except that it seems as if what they told me, the interest is to get people softened up to go to war. And that's the reason that the Q designation went over to Army Intelligence and the Pentagon. It used to be that it was in the White House, and it was, Jared Kushner. And so some would say it's Jared Kushner, some would say it's the Israelis, some would say Netanyahu, because Netanyahu is a godfather of Jared. On and on. I don't know who does it. Don't know. All I know is they're idiots, because what they're posting now is just so stupid. It's pathetic. It looks like a very, very bad Facebook group, And what I'm saying, anti-Semitism, I don't like the fact they showed a picture that had a Jew, and they had the Star of David on, and they had a knife, and it was bloody, and they had the names of the Russians and I think Ukrainians and a bunch of countries, and the blood up to their knees, insinuating that Jews have murdered so many people that the blood is up to their knees. I don't care who posted that. I don't care why you posted that. That is horrifying anti-Semitism. And anyone who posted, and it was an anonymous post, and then Q said underneath it, some things about the Pope and stuff. It's like, oh my goodness. And then over here, they had another post that said it was basically an advertisement for our military, all our big weapons, and, go war, go war. And then up here, it bashes, the bashing I don't know. It didn't do that before. I'm wondering whether there's now a third Q, and that they have actually been once again. Well, they have been. They've been compromised again. And so, who are they? And are they the real Q? And looking at the trip code, please, that is silly. We got to look at the message. And now their message seems as if they're so desperate and so anxious right now that they are just pulling out all the stops and going for their core message. And their core message, if you read the last drop since 975, and by the way, that the drops before that said they had been taken over and bad, and that it was multi-level, and it took down Great Awakening, and it took, it's all right there. I'm not making this up. I didn't do it. It's the Q people all ignored those things when they were doing their interpretations. Of course, he didn't say a word about aim for truth, except to say that we're wrong, and that was long before. So, what we see here is their agenda, and their agenda is very clear. War, war, war. And it's sad, because that's exactly why the original Q, Cicada, had created these messages, to send out a message to those who are smart enough to get it. Let's fight these people. Matter of fact, I can kind of tell you their current puzzle going on has a phrase in it, okay? And the phrase you probably won't figure out. It's very hard. But the intent of the phrase is, help us stop the war. And when you get the symbols and stuff, you go, oh yeah, right. And then they'll tell you, and so on and so forth. They tell me these things, and they show me, what it's really. They even told me, this is great. This is so funny. This is so funny. This will give you a perfect example of what I'm dealing with. Before I talked to DeFango, I didn't know DeFango, and Cicada said, look, you might want to talk to this guy. So I vetted that. I looked at all of his videos. Man, that was a lot of work. As you know, it was somewhat difficult. And then I said, okay, this is all good. And they said, now, here's the deal. He's trying to figure out the current puzzle, and he's going to give you hell because you said you figured out the puzzle. Well, I mistakenly said I figured out the puzzle. I thought the puzzle was the words on the front page. I'm stupid. I didn't know at that point. I learned later. So I apologized to DeFango. But the deal is, Cicada told me answers to the first decrypted sections of it so that I could tell DeFango, if he started giving me a hard time, to prove to him that I really was real and that I really am working with Cicada. But that was only like a last-ditch method if he started giving me a hard time. And I said, no, don't tell me that. He's a gamer. I didn't deserve to get the answers, so don't tell me. I'm working on sheer truth. If he doesn't believe me, that's okay, because I don't tell lies. I don't like telling lies, It'd have to be something horrible to make me tell a lie.
No.
To save my children or something, maybe I'd tell a lie, but why? Lies are not even interesting compared to the truth.
No kidding, absolutely, and we're going to take some phone calls too. Thanks for bearing with me for so long. I hope we're still okay, because maybe we'll get Dave Acton or somebody to call in. Just a few more things. Are you okay? You're saying a few different things. One of the things I worry about this group is just like Q. Q was successful, and James Munder is in the chat right now. He's a QTuber, and he explained it even, is that everybody's putting out the same message through multiple channels, but everybody's hitting their talking points. And one of the things I worry about with Q, and from the very beginning, is that it's a Donald Trump supporting puzzle, and it's asking for our military and Donald Trump to work together, and God to work together to save our country. And I think that's just a load of crap. So I want to know, how you say the trust Sessions thing is bullshit because Sessions isn't working with Trump. Now, I don't believe in Trump, although I'm happy he's talking about getting troops out of Syria. We'll see if they let him get away with that. But what do you think about, I heard you're saying stuff about John Bolton. Are you saying that John Bolton's okay? Somebody's saying that.
No. And Hugh says, follow Bolton. Okay, yeah. That's a command. That is brainwashing. Follow Bolton. Bolton is a war hawk. He was put in the United Nations because he's like the meanest person in America. He's completely bad. He's vicious. He's mean. He's got a very bad history. Why did Trump put him there? Why did Trump put Goldman Sachs people in and then get rid of them? He was sucking their brain dry to figure out how the true evil works. John Bolton knows how to manipulate China. We are in a war with China. They try to say we're in a war with Russia. We actually need to be more friendly with Russia, to be quite frank, because we know how they operate. They're corrupt mafia oligarchs. China lies all the time. Bolton is there in national security position. He can only give advice. He didn't put him in a position where he could drop bombs, because Bolton would send in 10,000 troops into Syria in a second. Let's remember, Trump hasn't listened to anybody. McMaster's, Tillerson, nobody. He ain't going to listen. He pulls them in. It's the art of the deal. Hey, I want to do a deal with you. This is what the East does. I did lots of deals with the East, okay? Yes, yes, yes. Everything's yes, yes, yes. Later, everything's no, no, but they never shake their head no. That's what China does with us. China is in a war with us that nobody seems to even notice. We have been, through our intelligence report, pointing this out. What is Trump doing? First off, Q is not supporting Trump. Trump has got not only Horowitz and 500 people looking for leakers, he's got his National Security Council looking for leakers, and the last leaker got fired, didn't he? The person in charge of the National Security Council, bye-bye. Why? Because there was a leak. He hates leaks. He would never support a leak. Anyone who thinks he would support a leak has not followed his strategy, has not paid any attention at all. He does not support Q. That has, I hate to use words, but remember, that's the words he used about all the people in D.C. Stupid, stupid, stupid. He doesn't even listen to his intelligence community. He's using a different intelligence group, and he doesn't use the FBI. And we've already said all these in our intelligence reports, so it's nothing new. We back up everything we say. I could go into great detail. The point is, Q is not helping Trump at all, and the recent drops, Trump is trying to get us out of Syria. He stopped paying ISIS $1 billion a year that Obama was paying him. He went to Saudi Arabia and told Saudi Arabia and all of the Arab Muslim countries the same thing. If you don't stop supporting radical Islam in Syria and everywhere else, I'm not doing any more business with you. We saw the end of, look at it. Look what happened in Iraq. Look what's happening in Afghanistan. Look what's happening in Syria. Look what's happening in Yemen and Somalia and Sudan and Libya. War is stopping. North Korea. War is stopping. But what is Q saying right now to prove that Trump is on their side? War, war, war. Is that what Trump is saying? No, Trump has never, in my opinion, and there's never been a single tiny proof that Trump is connected to it. Not even with the first Q. They never intended to say they were connected. That's when it became interesting, and it went from just, hundreds of thousands to millions of people. But as of recent, when the bubble was burst, there are estimates that half of the Q followers left. Because why? Because Q was taken down all at once, and the Q interpreters never addressed it. And the people said, uh-oh, compromised again. This proves they were compromised back in January when everybody knew it. It is a psyops. And look at the garbage they printed right before they went down. And what is this thing about aim for truth? So if you think our numbers went down, our numbers went up by probably 10 times that. We watch it. We watch them take our numbers down. Are you kidding? Plus, I can go buy numbers. I don't want numbers.
Right.
We want intelligent people to take this. We're giving you first-tier information. We send it out to people. They do beautiful things with it. And so we're everywhere. Everywhere you see SES, that came from Abel Danger, from our dear friend, Field McConnell, and his work, which we helped move and advance forward. And now it's really out there because we've thrown down the gauntlet and said, you can prove whether your intelligence agency is right on or not by what they say about SES. So let me go back to Trump. Trump is not part of this. Jared Kushner might have taken pictures and been drawn into some kind of psyops. I don't know. We don't know that. We don't know who it is. If we were to choose who's likely, well, we'd choose the rogue CIA and the rogue Unit 8200. Why? Because they're doing everything else. Look at CrowdStrike.
Okay, all right. Well, people are really anxious to get to phone calls. Let me just cut you off. There's one more question. There's one question I have to ask though. The interview with Jason, you said you know who George Webb is, who he works for, but you wouldn't tell him who it was. Do you want to tell me where his retirement plan comes from? Like you said, you knew to Jason Goodman.
Well, as I pointed out to Jason, and Jason said out loud, I said he said in his last audio, because of certain things that happened, he clearly stated who he was and who he worked for, Jason. And remember, he was really upset with me. Tell me, tell me, tell me. I said, Jason, he said he had breakfast with GS13s, 14, GS13s, 14s, 15s, and 16s. GS16 is only in one particular section of the whole OPM. And then he named it DIDOD, the Department of Intelligence, or the DIA. He didn't quite, he said DIDOD, but that's DIADOD. DIDOD, which goes back to the original, which means he was part of what's called SCS, the Senior Cryptological Service. And when he was saying who that was, he was saying he's the GS16.
Okay, so he's saying he works with the government, basically.
And you know that's not his name.
Right. What? And is it George Swigert, or is it something totally different?
Of course it's Swigert. You are so good. That's the way we love you.
Well, we knew that. We knew that back from when I said that Dave Acton and George Webb are the same person. Do you have any comments? They're brothers. Yeah, I don't know about that. Well,
Dave Swigert is in the SES books, and we have
Dave
the proof
Swigert
also that who he worked for in the whole thing.
Yeah, he's a real piece of work, that guy.
They look exactly alike. They talk exactly alike, right? Those two, they're brothers.
He put me through a lot of headaches, but he might be one of the ones to call in. We're going to take phone calls, ladies and gentlemen. 650-429-8294. I hope you're ready.
Oh, I'm ready.
Thanks for coming on with me. It's been great.
Are you kidding? I am so happy. You are the best questioner. And I love good questions because it brings truth forward. And you've made me say things I didn't really want to say, but because I know you're not going to let me get away with it, I'm going to give you all the answers that I possibly can. I can't tell you certain things to compromise some of these people, but
Right. We get as much truth as we can handle. So 650
exactly
429-8294. I haven't run an ad for Truth Clothing. And let me tell you, this is sponsored by Doshi. Truthclothing.io. That's where you can buy T-shirts to support this kind of work. I'm going to take our first call and make sure you guys can hear each other. This is Nathan. You're on the air.
Hi, Nathan. Long time no see. It's been a while. It's Greg Foreman, a.k.a. CTV.
Hey, go ahead. You have a question for our guest, Doug Gabriel?
Yeah, Doug, hi. First of all, are you or are you not a Jew?
Are you not a Jew, he says.
I'm definitely not a Jew. I look like one, but I'm not. I've been accused of that. I'm certainly not.
He said he was a Jesuit priest.
Next question is, who caused 9/11?
Who caused 9/11?
We have done full reports on that, and all you have to do is go to our site and you look up the...
I just want a yes or no answer, real short. I don't want your...
Hold on. Let him answer. It's okay.
Betsy, what's the name of that article about 9/11 that reveals it? The truth about 9/11. Okay. I know we have revealed what caused it and the people involved, the exact mechanisms. I'm not going to speculate on because, to my knowledge, some of the speculation I would agree with, but has yet to be proven. So what I can say is, of course, we would know it was Bush Sr., Dick Cheney, and then it was covered up, of course, by Robert Mueller afterwards because he was having an appendicitis attack. That's the reason he didn't take over the FBI until after 9/11. But after he did, this man watched Tower 7 fall and free fall and didn't ask any questions. And then, of course, he made sure that we couldn't sue Saudi Arabians, who it was blamed upon. And only now are we going to start to look at the truth. So if you know about the Hammer money, if you know about the Brady bonds, if you know about the takedown of USSR based upon the Brady bonds, that's what I'm talking about. That was George Bush Sr. and the Vulcans. That would be Dick Cheney. That would be James Baker, his James Baker.
Interrupt, please.
Go ahead, Red. Yeah, that's all right.
Okay, what about the 5 dancing Israelis?
Okay, he's asking...
And the videotaping of the Twin Towers.
Okay,
what do you think of the Israeli involvement in gaining passports for the suspected terrorists?
Yeah, so that's what he's getting at, Doug. I finished up. He's getting at the Jews.
I would say you're certainly correct.
He wants to know if you're pro Jew, basically.
No, here's the deal. Israeli intelligence is the best intelligence in the world. It is rumored they have 100 Mossad agents, and none of them, or almost none of them, are in Israel. So they're very good at what they do. And you pointed out that there were Pakistani. Well, you didn't point out. There were Israelis, there were Pakistanis, there were a lot of people, as Abel Danger points out. That's what Abel Danger is all about, and Phil McConnell. And yes, I would say certainly, absolutely, 100% Pakistani intelligence, Saudi Arabian intelligence, our intelligence, the Mossad.
Good enough, Doug. We're going to take another call. I have to figure. We have so many coming in. This is Nathan. You're on the air. You have a question for Doug?
I do. I think that you guys are doing great work with information, and I appreciate it. And my question for Doug is, I'm not the smartest tool in the shed, and he has exposed some people that I've known have been bad. And my question is, he's talked a lot about the Silicon Boys, and I agree with him. Unfortunately, the hard way. I don't try to hide who I am, and I really appreciate his work, and I want to know when one certain big one is going down. If.
Oh, thank you so much for what you said. I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed either. So what do you mean the big one?
Oh, I already hung up on her. I think probably the next, is there a big false flag or something around the corner? And I'm sorry, caller, for hanging up on you. I think that's what she was asking.
Oh, yes. There's certainly going to be in the Middle East, and we've already seen some of this starting with, the attacks, the shooting of the people at the fences, and so on and so forth. So a lot is going on, but what is going on behind the scene has already happened. Israel has already bombed Lebanon. Israel has already flown over Iran, checking out their radar. They're getting set. So if there's going to be, this isn't going to be a false flag. We are looking at the possibility of Netanyahu himself, who of course we know is a criminal, taking Israel against most of the Jewish people's desire into a war that will lead to the greater Israel project. And literally, I'm only going to put that on Netanyahu right now, and I'm not going to say he's a Zionist or anything else. I'm going to say he's a warlord, and that's very clear, and that's about to happen. And in America, is what I think she may be talking about, is it going to be another false flag, another Parkland, another whatever. Those will always happen, and they'll happen, as you know, as you're very well aware of, just at the time that they need the news to change what's being talked about.
Perfect. Sorry, I'm so many people calling in. This is Nathan. You're on the air.
Hey, Nathan.
Hey, Dave.
Dave Swigert.
Dave Swigert. What's happening?
So I wanted to know about my SES background. I thought Doug could help me with that. What's up, Doug? What do you got on me?
You know what? Why don't we do something more creative than what is about to happen here? Why don't I send you that information? And you will find it. Listen to me, please. Please don't talk over me.
I mean, we always have these.
Please don't talk over me.
Hold on, Dave.
It's not a problem.
Hold on, Dave. Hold on. I'll let him talk. I'll officiate this. I'm just getting the popcorn out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Nathan. So what I would suggest is that I already have it, and I can send it to you. And what we'll do is we will post it on our site. Now, I don't wish to take you down.
Post what? Hold on a second. Post what?
From the plum book, your name, your SES.
My name's in the plum book.
Yeah. And you've already said on your broadcast who you are. So really, you're like talking to Jason Goodman.
Listen. I've never said anything in any broadcast about who you are. I'll be more than happy to discuss this to clear up any misconceptions. But all this about, I listened to what you said about George and SES and 16 and DOD, and I wasn't going to call you out on any of that. And I wasn't going to say anything about that stuff. But I think if that's all the open source information you have, is that my brother said something like that because my brother had breakfast. I don't agree with anything my brother's doing. But if he has breakfast with a bunch of lawyers over at the DOJ, so what? That doesn't make him an SES 16. And you're saying the only reason you have proof that he's an SES 16 is that he said so in a video. Is that it?
No.
I'm just trying to understand the baseline of the intake of the intelligence so we can understand the quality of the intelligence. That's all.
Do you have a good relationship with your brother? I talk with him. Do you talk with him?
Zero relationship.
Well, then why are you bringing him into this? I told you what was on his video. He said,
you started this on
please don't talk over me.
Call.
Nathan, if he talks over me, it's just like
Clearly.
Jason.
Hold on, Dave, just give me 1 sec. I'm going to
Conversation's
try.
over.
Let me go ahead and let him hear. I want you guys to get this out a little bit. So go ahead, Doug.
No, I have much more information on that. And as you probably know, if you've been following George Webb, that he's been mentioning me quite often because I actually asked him to look into a few things, and he did. And so the battle between Jason and George, I'm letting them work that out. The battle between you and your brother, that's a clear reason why you calling here today and saying that you're David Swigert, David Acton, and knowing what I've seen of your audios, what are you attempting to do here? You're trying to attempt to clear yourself. We're going to print these things, and it'll be in print. And at that point, I guess if people want to notice who you are, fine. I don't have anything against you. And I was shocked to see that you were in the book, the Plum Book. I was shocked to hear your brother say what he said. I was shocked to hear Jason say what he said, and many of the other people who are coming out now who are accusing me of all kinds of things. So you said you weren't going to, call me out and this and that. Don't hesitate. You can do whatever you want because I simply tell the truth. And you, as you know, some
Really
people...
not. I have to wait for you to finish, so I'll just wait.
Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, as you know, some people have a big problem with you. So I don't need to call you out, and I don't need to get you more clicks, and I don't need to bring you attention. And so I like to ignore people who want to deny who they are and
Dave,
their
you can jump in.
past. So I'm done, and that's all I have to say. But if
All
you
right,
really wish to call me out,
just-
please try.
Let's clear up the Plum Book issue, because I don't exactly know what it is, but I guess it's an SES book. I'm not in SES. I've never had a full-time government position. There's lots of Dave Swigerts in the world. There's lots of Dave Actons in the world. I've actually met Dave Swigerts at conferences because in that area of the country, Maryland, Pennsylvania, and the other guy, I can't remember his name, that Nathan, you knew who he was, I can't remember. Anyway, he found some Dave Swigerts in some different groups at NIST. They're not me. So if you find Dave Swigert in a Plum Book and publish, hey, we found Dave Swigert in the Plum Book, I don't have a problem with that. It's not me. It's not the guy you're listening to on the phone. It's some other Dave Swigert. Okay, publish it. Big deal.
Okay, fair enough. Is that kind of the message you had for him, Dave? It sounds like he's mistaken if he thinks he's got you. And then
Well, no, it's just I listen. I listen, and I'm not taking sides here. I have my reasons. I listen to George's flip-flopping that he did on AIM. One minute they're the greatest researchers in the world. The next minute he didn't want to have anything to do with them, and he's been back and forth, back and forth. My brother will agree with who's ever standing in front of him, confronting him. If you confront him and say you didn't pay your restaurant bill, he'll go, "Oh yeah, you're absolutely right. Here's the $10." So George will agree with anybody. So it's great that you guys have this relationship. That's fantastic. My only concern has and always has been that this issue with Jason. I'm much more interested in problems with Jason. So I don't have time for problems over here. I don't have a problem with anything AIM's doing and all the rest of this stuff. My problem is with people saying that I was a CIA drug dealer when I was in the Air Force pulling bodies out of helicopters. They know absolutely nothing about me. So when people start saying, "Oh, we know all about you," which is what you said, Doug. We know all about Dave Acton. We know all about him. I just want to come in and maybe say a few little things to the people that always say, "We know all about him," because I don't think you know all about me. That's all. That's it.
Fair
Friendly
enough.
little chat.
All right, fair enough, Dave. Thanks for calling in. All right. Any other comment? I'll open up the phones again. That was interesting. Everybody's really interested in this.
When we post it, there'll be plenty of information there to demonstrate who he is. But, what did he just say?
You claim to have more information than just the Plum Book?
Oh, yeah. What did he just say, though? He just said he didn't work for the government. Then he just said, did I just mistaken what he just said? He was in the Air Force pulling bodies out of whatever?
I don't know if
Did that just contradict?
I don't know if he was denying that, or
like he was contradicting himself. I don't know.
I don't know if he was denying it or if he was saying that it was true. This is Nathan. You're on the air.
Hey, Nate, it's Freddie.
Hey, F and Freddie, a celebrity with us right now. Doug,
Great,
go ahead.
great show. It's very interesting. I think YouTube is all truth entertainment, but that's just my opinion. I'd like to ask your guest there what his stance is on Zionism, if he is a Zionist, and why he thinks that Israel isn't bombing the shit out of civilians and other things. He said that Israel was the good guy, more or less, earlier.
That's not what I heard. That's not what I heard, to be fair. I'll let him answer the question. Actually, from what I understand, we're or I'm sorry, I say we. I happen to agree. But Thomas is actually anti-Israel and the Greater Israel Project. Is that right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And certain forms of Zionism, like labor Zionism, which is really one of the worst that there is. And so, no, I don't quite understand what you're saying. I believe that Israel has committed lots of crimes. So, and I'm not, I can't say, I would have to define even the word Zionist before I would get into saying whether I am for or against it. Do I think Israel has a right to have a country? Well, let's go back. What created that? What were those arrangements? And we actually need to go back and look at the reason that Israel exists to begin with. And what is going on there is horrible. And no, I do not support Zionism, that if you call Zionism the group that goes out and bombs people or takes other people's land or continuously, in what we call it, create incursions into other countries. The Golan Heights, what they've done in the Golan Heights and Genie Oil, and the fact that Dick Cheney and Woosley and Rothschild and Rupert Murdoch are getting oil. The reason the Golan Heights was stolen by Israel from Syria was the oil that was there, and it's the Genie Oil Company. I don't support any of that. I don't support anybody stealing land from anybody else. And I don't support concepts like, it used to be a concept they called eye for an eye, and then they changed it to 2 eyes for an eye. I don't believe in that. And so I think what you said there, Nathan, is exactly right. We have to define these terms. When somebody says deep state, you need to tell me who you're talking about. If you say shadow government, you need to tell me who you're talking about. When you say Zionism, which form of Zionism? There's a dozen forms of Zionism. I've known lots of Jews. Loved them. And I also know some very evil people who happen to be Jewish, but that's true with Christians and Muslims and every other organization that's religious that I've ever come across. So I don't know if that answers your question, but certainly Freddie, I am not for war.
What do you think, Freddie?
How about President? What are your thoughts on President Trump being a Zionist then? Do you believe that he's looking after the world and doing his best to not do the mistakes of the past, like 20 years of war almost? And do you see him actually wanting to change that, or do you see him just perpetuating more war as most of us do?
All right, Freddie, I'll let you go. You can take it off the air. Go ahead.
I don't know. Especially with the term Zionism and saying Trump is one thing or the other, I judge him by his actions, especially the actions since he's become the president or even, entered into the election. So what do I think Trump is supporting war in Israel? No, that's not good business. It's not good nationalism. That's good globalism. And he is not a globalist, okay? So what did he do here? Well, let's remember that Obama spent a lot of money trying to affect the elections in Israel. Trump did not, and he doesn't support those kind of things in other countries. I think he wants to get out of these things, or at least that's what we see him doing. So, is Trump supporting Zionism? And if you say Zionism means the Israelites trying to take over everything around them, no, I don't think he believes that. But I don't know. I judge him by his actions. I don't know what's in his head.
I kind of think he does, to be honest. So I understand people challenging you on this. Do you believe Israel has a right to exist that's ordained to them somehow? And do you believe Israel has a God-given right to exist the way the Jews do or the way Zionists do?
Well, I'm a historian. To give my full answer would take a complete historical explanation of how they came into existence and why they think they have that right and why the Palestinians believe they have their right.
What do you think? I don't want the whole explanation. We'll get some more calls. But, I mean, do you think they have a right to exist in that sense? And do you agree with moving the embassy to Jerusalem?
Moving the embassy to Jerusalem is a stunt. That is that's a low ball. That is the wrecking ball coming in for the deal. He says that because if that happens, and the people who say that means that it recognizes that Jerusalem is completely owned by Israel at that point, and that it isn't a multi-capital. That isn't what's happening. They're recognizing Israel choosing, which they have forever, Jerusalem as their capital, and they're moving the embassy there. The reason that's happening, I think, in my opinion, is that's kind of the first volley of the deal. And the deal is there has to be a two-state agreement. There has to be a Palestine, there has to be an Israel, and then we'll work out the rest. Well, are they going to the peace table? No, because the Palestinians say, no, our mission is to kill all Israelis. And the Israelis say, our mission is to stop anybody from killing us. And the Palestinians are not shy about the fact that they believe that that's their land and what's happening. And there's a lot of horrible things happening there. Do I have a solution? No, I do not have a solution. Do I think Trump has a solution? No. Do I think he wants to go to war? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. That is not good for business, because he knows then the power's out of his hands. It goes to the multinational companies that make the weapons for both sides, and those are all globalists. And he is a nationalist. It doesn't make sense to me. But I don't know. I'm a one guy. I can't say that we have any intel on that says anything different, except that we do believe that he absolutely does not want Armageddon. And that's what the three fundamental factions are actually demanding, really.
All right. Well, I think you answered a lot of questions for people with that one. It's an interesting point of view. All right, I'll take one more call. We'll see how they go. Let's see. We have a lot of people trying to call in. This is Nathan. You're on the air.
Hey, Ethan.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Hey, this is Truth to You for you. What's up, Douglas?
Hey, how are you doing?
Good. Can I just ask you a couple of things?
Yes, sir. What's your name?
Of the Jesuit Oath?
I actually, to be quite honest with you, I love it. What's your name, by the way? Just first name.
True. My name's Tommy Grooms.
Tommy. Thank you, Tommy.
Phelps, the writer of Vatican Assassins.
Oh, really? So then you know what the vow is.
We just got through doing a few videos.
No, when they gave me the vow, when they ordained me, I did not.
Hold on, guys. You're both talking at the same time.
Oh, sorry.
The caller. The question you asked was about whether he took a particular oath. What was that?
The fourth degree vow.
Okay. Do you want to answer that, Thomas? Did you take the fourth degree vow?
No, I cheated. When I went into the Jesuits, I knew some things about them that weren't good, and I could see the horrible pedophilia and sexual weirdness that was going on. And so by the time I had gotten the training and went from being a novitiate, to being ordained, and I'd finished my Doctor of Divinity, at that point I realized what I was in. And I had not taken, I did not do the Manresa exercises, and I did not take the vow. I simply did not say it. Thank you for asking me that, because that's a key factor to why I am not a vicious, mean Jesuit or an assassin. And there have been many Jesuits who have been, sir. And I am sure that your book is filled with a lot of truth about the evil of Jesuits, because there's a lot out there.
Yes, and you're right about the Zionists. There is 6 different types. But here's my other point. And I don't know if you don't know about this or what, but the SES, even Phil McConnell agrees with me on this, it's not the biggest problem. It's a huge problem. But it goes further. And here's where some of your stories distract from the truth. When you say that Trump's going to set up military tribunals, here's the problem with that, Douglas. The court's already a military tribunal.
Yes. The only reason we suggested that was because of that executive order, and because we only suggested that he arrest a few people, and those would be the people involved in 9/11. Remember? Because there were deaths.
The military government's been set up since 1933 through Proclamation 2040 and Trading with the Enemy Act. That was based on the World War I status. That was the Trading with the Enemy Acts based on the Banking Relief Act.
I totally agree with you. So I think he wants some refined question, though, right?
Already, that's why every flag in the courthouse is trimmed to gold frame.
That's right.
But you act like you know what Trump's talking about. And Corsi, people need to know about Corsi. He's a member of the CNP, the Council of National Policy People, and it's ran by Timothy Dolan, who also runs the CFR and the Trilateral Commission. So you people need to stay away from Corsi, but that's another subject.
All right,
Am I right?
I like that. I agree with what you said, Tommy. And the thing about military tribunals, we hesitated on that for quite a while until that executive order. And you are right, and it doesn't need to happen that way. And there could be completely other different ways. And we don't know Trump's mind. We just look at some of his strategies, and sometimes we make predictions. And frequently we are right. And I'm sorry if some of our stories have distracted from the truth, if that's what you're saying. And I need you to straighten me out, and I like what you just said, and it's a good perspective.
Yeah, well, thank you. But check us out, 24/7 World Radio. We offer private citizenship classes, so you are no longer the all caps name, this entity that's been created for you.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for your call. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, cool. All right, well, you okay for another caller or two?
Oh, I can't wait to see who we get. We could get some strange people calling if we're lucky.
Great. People are really interested in what you have to say. This is Nathan. You're on the air.
Hey, so you blocked my number now because you're afraid of me getting you kicked off of YouTube, or what? What is that all about?
Who's this? I don't block any numbers. I just take calls as they come in.
Frank, maybe I'm just taking
hey, Frank. Don't take things personally. Hey, man. Well, this is Frank Bacon. Frank Bacon asked me to ask you about him. Doug, do you know Frank Bacon?
Don't know.
No, I didn't think so either. What's up,
my name hasn't come across your desk or Betsy's desk recently?
Betsy, Frank Bacon, has his name come across your desk?
Nope.
Not that she knows of.
They say no.
Okay, well then let's try and have a conversation afterwards. But I'll give you a little primer so that if you're interested, you can do it sooner than later. But I saw what you had. You had a conversation with an interesting gentleman in New York, Jason G-Man. I words out of context and play it up like he's got a death threat, and then 5 minutes later get on a phone call with another Thomas Paine, who he calls the real Thomas Paine.
Right.
So I was kind of hoping you could clear up just the whole Thomas Paine aspect of it. And then what I'd like to do in return is I'd like to talk to you about how I've been doing a lot of what you've been talking about for the last 2 years, and see where we kind of cross over on some things, and see if I can help you out with your group's mission, greater mission.
You see, Nathan, that's exactly what I was talking about. That's why these things happen. I'm sorry I don't know about you, but I really don't go out much.
He's the king of Steam It. He's the king of Steam It. He's going to ask you to join his secret society over there. So thanks, Frank. Thanks for the call.
Wait, leave him online. I want to see if I give him the answer that he's looking for. First off, Frank, I can tell by your voice that I will really like you. I can tell that. Now, the only thing I disagree with what you said is you called Jason a gentleman. He's not a gentleman. I mean, that was proven. And I like what you said, the way that he says, said it was going to kill him, and he just made the most out of it. That just shows he's clickbait. He's all about clickbait, and he doesn't really have much content. So, what you are doing, of course, I'm very interested in it, and I will look it up. And you said we'll have a conversation. Yes, all you have to do is contact Betsy, and now that
he has to have an audience. I'm not talking to someone who has an audience of 500 people.
Did you hear that?
Frank,
That's Betsy.
They're not going to talk to you.
No. That was Betsy. She's the strategist, but I get an opinion, and it depends if I really like his stuff. Then yeah, but what she's saying is interviewing. Because the interviewing stuff, if we took every invite to an interview, I would never have time for anything else.
Right.
All right.
It's not going to be an interview. It'll be a private conversation.
Yeah, it's to get your network growing and stuff.
The questionable nature of what we talk about. I'm also into secret societies, and we have very similar backgrounds. So I'd love to connect with you.
Francis Bacon. I know you're Shakespeare. You don't have to tell me about your bilateral code. I know all about that.
We'll correct that first off. Thanks so much.
I'm making a joke, of course, Frank. Thank you. Pleasure to meet you.
Frank.
Frank,
People are
because it's
laughing.
Francis Bacon. You get it? You know, it's cute.
Yeah.
I didn't know about him.
Sometimes it's Benjamin Franklin Bacon.
Oh, is
He
it?
asked about Thomas Paine. Thomas Paine, Jason's an idiot, first of all, because Thomas Paine is a historical reference, right? Hold on, Chad, one sec. Thomas Paine is a historical character in history, right? It's not an accident that you and True Pundit had the same name when it's not either of your names, right?
Correct.
I mean, so
and my name is not just Thomas Paine. From the beginning, it's Thomas Paine and the Ass of the Globalists. And I wanted to make certain that people weren't thinking that I was giving some kind of authority to myself because I used the name of, the guy who wrote the pamphlet for the First Revolution. But Betsy Ross, that's why she's Betsy, right. And that's why I'm Thomas. That's just a device so that we're telling people there's a Second American Revolution. So Thomas Paine and the True Pundit, I've read one article of his. I didn't really like the tone of it. I didn't know he existed when I chose the name Thomas Paine. And certainly I didn't try to steal his thunder or anything like that. I think we might have been out with that name, I don't know, maybe about the same time as him. I don't know.
Jason doesn't know history very well. He thought, anyway. Go ahead, Chad. Thanks for holding.
Hey, thanks, Nate. Great show.
Thanks.
Yeah, I wanted to shift gears a little and talk about Ormus, the Gospel of Sophia.
Excellent.
Oh, my goodness. You really want to talk about Ormus, okay?
No.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Betsy's trying to tell me to stop this conversation. I'm just telling you, I ain't stopping this until Nathan tells me to stop.
Hold on, guys. Go start over, Chad, because it's hard to hear you because it's a three-way. Just start over, Chad. Go ahead about Ormus.
Yeah, I've worked with Orgonite myself, and it's fairly similar with getting the Ormus to propagate. The restructuring of ether and water, it's along the same lines. I've had certain manifesting of the qualities of this such power. And I haven't looked over your site, so I was a little interested of your work in dealing with Ormus and other sciences of that nature.
Okay, I could go on forever about it, but Ormus is found everywhere in nature. It's concentrated in certain substances like Concord grape juice, spring water, certain other substances. And if you can isolate it, and what you're finding, you're isolating from a salt. So we make it from Himalayan sea salt, and then we get these metals, these rare metals, cesium, yttrium, iridium, the higher white gold, platinum, all the things in the brain that cause conductivity. So when you take Ormus, the studies in Switzerland showed that children who are ADD, ADHD, all these problems, Down children, whatever, they give it to them after just a couple minutes. They put it under their tongue. You basically are taking the salts out of salt, but you're taking a certain type of salt. You give this to a child, and their brain goes into gamma brainwave, and all their other brain waves come into coherence. So for sometimes as long as 2 hours, it seems to enhance your ability to take in information and remember it. So they call it, like it's this miracle thing. Well, it's also good for many other things because it creates hyperconnectivity because the brain is actually, it's bioelectric. It uses piezoelectric energy, and Ormus seems to be something that is the conductive element in the brain. So the brain actually works better when you take this. Now, we came across it because we were trying to figure out ways to help children get in the right state so that they could learn.
Got it? What do you think, Chad?
Well, yeah, very interesting. It's off of what I've worked with. It's a little bit of more of a conscious thing, working with crystals and allowing that to manifest and allow the harmony to essentially dissolve any conflict. I've been off key for a while, but it's very interesting that you've developed or yourself has worked with this Ormus, but it sounds like it's more like metal thing.
Yeah, I think they have a recipe for it on their website. If you want to get into it, Chad. All right, cool.
Yeah, I'll have to check it out.
Thanks, man.
Thank you.
Sure. Chad's an interesting guy.
Well, nobody talks about Ormus. That's cool.
Yeah. I guess so. Yeah. Everybody's asking. Oh, somebody's asking something called join or die. Do you say that? Somebody's saying that join or die. Ask about join or die. What's that?
Yes, that is Benjamin Franklin's meme for the 13 colonies. It was a snake cut into 13 pieces, and each of the names of the colonies were on it. It was actually considered to be the major meme that people rallied around for the first revolution, and said join or die. In other words, join the colonies together or die, because the British and the Dutch will tear us apart, because the British East India Company, the Dutch East India Company were warring for America at the time. And that's the tea that was thrown into the Boston Harbor was from the British East India Company. And it was, of course, a Masonic, the Masons were very deeply involved in all of that. So, you can get me started on any topic, and unfortunately I get a little...
I get it. I'm going to take this call real quick. This is Nathan. You're on the air.
Hi, Nathan. Is Douglas still on the air with you?
Yeah,
Yes.
Go ahead. Question for Douglas?
Hi, Douglas. This is Tammy from West Des Moines, Iowa, and I'm a big fan of yours and Betsy's, and I love you guys. I love all the things you talk about.
Thank you, Tammy. That makes my day.
At first thing... I'm sorry. Go ahead. You talk.
She just said it. He just told you he's really happy you called.
The reason I'm calling, the main reason is I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease in 2014, and I've been an insulin-dependent diabetic for 30 years, and I know that's autoimmune, but what I found out about Crohn's is it's an oxidative stress disorder, and I was just wondering if the Ormus would help me.
It probably wouldn't help the Crohn's. It would help your thinking, so that you would your brain just seems to work better when you take it. But what I would recommend for Crohn's, and I'm not a doctor and I cannot predict it, make any diagnosis or anything like that, but I do know one thing, and that's that when you take kelp and dulse, organic kelp and dulse, it helps your thyroid. And people don't like to associate Crohn's with the thyroid, but I have seen people simply take that, and it would make a huge difference because of the iodine. And so, as you might or might not know, Betsy's also a naturopathic doctor, and she has a protocol for iodine. People say that Crohn's also can be helped by taking nascent iodine, a significant amount of it each day. So there are a few things that, are simply what you'd call supplements that could help. But in terms of, the complicated stuff you're asking about, I don't know. We've just been, I've just been helping people all my life with, showing them herbs and foods and stuff that they can take. And I'm really amazed by when somebody's thyroid isn't working, how quickly it comes back into alignment by simply taking dulse and kelp, organic, usually from the North Atlantic, and it has so much iodine in a natural form it can be digested. Or when people go on iodine, amazing things can happen to improve their health. But those are just, we'll call those supplements that I'm say can help some people. Not that I'm giving you a diagnosis or anything like that.
All right, I'm taking. People are asking me for more calls. Anytime you need to leave, just raise your hand. People will keep you here forever. But I'll take some more. We'll take some more calls as long as Doug's here. 650-429-8294. Go ahead, Doug. Did you want to say something?
I wanted to say, I love questions because when I get one I can't answer, then I go research it immediately. So please bring on the questions. I love them.
All right, no problem. Thanks for being a good sport. All right, 650-429-8294.
Betsy's making fun of me, Nathan. Should I make her come over here and say hi? Betsy.
Put her on camera. If she's going to make fun of you, she better be on camera.
She better come over here and at least wave to the good people.
Hi. And I didn't do my hair or makeup, so that's why you're not going to see me. But you're doing a great job. I'm glad you're getting such good questions.
And you'd like for me to come eat?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't need food when truth is.
You need to go eat?
No,
right.
I'm totally into this.
Home life. Okay, all right, no problem. Everybody's really into it. It looks like, though, we might have dried up because 650-429-8294. Hold on, that's one problem is I can't put it on the screen. 650-GAY TAXI, for anybody who's wondering.
Like that.
So anyway, 650-GAY TAXI, everybody, if you want to call in. And I will, at the end of this, probably hop on over to Twitch, and then you guys can talk to me. We're at Keep It Thomas here as long as he's willing to take calls. If we don't get calls, then we're going to wrap up the show with Thomas and go on over to oh, here we go. We knew they'd come in. This is Nathan. You're on the air.
Hello?
Hey.
Who's this?
This is Nathan. Who's this?
Oh, is this the YouTube?
What do you think?
Okay, because I'm watching it, but it's not matching up. I wanted to ask a question about the Ormus or about any other advice about my daughter because she has Tourette's.
These are interesting calls. Okay, that's really interesting. Why do you think we just got 2 calls in a row about health conditions in Ormus?
Because they know that some of the stuff we do has to do with that.
Okay.
I don't know anything to do for Tourette's.
Okay.
Well, I do, but you wouldn't be able to find a eurythmist to do these physical exercises. The ability for a person to have impulse control is, of course, psychological, but there are things you can do to make the person feel that they have boundaries. And that is these exercises that you do.
Okay.
But besides that, Tourette's, I don't know anything physical, a substance that can help it. So I'm very sorry to say that.
Call. We'll take another call. Go ahead, caller. You're on the air.
Yeah, I just had a quick question about Q and open to both sides here. So just interested in the answer. What are your comments on Trump's hand signs? There's been a few times where he's actually drawn the letter Q, or there's been Trump himself has said something that's been requested on the Q board. Do you have any comments on that, or can you explain why he might be doing that, associating himself with Q?
Thanks.
Well, you see, I haven't followed it long enough to be able to go into those details, but I would still suggest that those things are pretty sketchy, the ones that I've looked at, even the pictures of the pen on the desk at Camp David, the picture out the window or this or that. Those are okay. And, the what new and what is it, tippy top or something, some phrase he said or something he did, or that's all good, all well and good. But to me, Trump is so forward. If he wanted to be any part of it, I don't think he'd hold back.
I'm with you. I think it's all a bunch of baloney. People try to, conflate one thing with another thing to prove that Q is Trump. That's my opinion on it, since he asked both of us. Go ahead, caller.
Do you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you. You're on the air.
Okay. First of all, I just want to send my love out to everybody within the sound of my voice. And I want to acknowledge Douglas for doing the interview, because I was highly skeptical because he didn't do very good an interview with Goodman. And I respect his esoteric knowledge. And now that he's done this interview, I have a lot better feeling about him.
Did you have a question for him, or was that just a comment you wanted to make sure to give?
Well, what is the primary substance of the universe?
What is the primary substance of the universe?
Love.
Very good. Thank you. You passed the test.
Thank you. That's great. I love it.
I don't know exactly what happened there, but it looks like you got the right answer. All right.
It was easy.
We're getting them in. We're getting them in rapid fire now. So, thanks again for hanging with you. Your dinner's not getting cold, is it?
I don't care. Nathan, I really, I want to make sure that you ask me, or these people ask me, the most difficult questions they can, because really the answers are simple in most cases.
Good. This is Nathan. You're on the air.
Hey, Nathan, it's Eileen from Channel 1. How you doing? This is awesome. What a great show. And thank you, Douglas, for coming on. That's so cool.
Thank you.
Now, I'm going to ask you a question, and please believe me, I'm not trying to make you mad. I just am super, super, super curious. I know now that video phone call was not supposed to be public, but I did hear the whole thing. So I'm just curious, who is it that's going to squash or off Jason Goodman, and is it because of the George Webb Mossad connection? I'm just trying to understand who it is that wants him to stop what he's doing.
Yes, exactly. And there's another person who has made threats to Jason, who I have spoken to, who is very upset. Plus, Jason, remember the bomb threat they called in? Which
You remember the bomb threat was called in? Yeah, I remember it.
And the FBI was called.
Yeah.
Well, George Webb just said Jason was the one who made the call. That is a huge crime if that happened. I don't know. So let me see if I can get back to the real source or the heart of her question.
Yeah, who is it that wants Jason Goodman to stop what he's doing, and is it tied to Mossad? Actually, I didn't think you threatened him. I thought it was a warning. If you don't stop doing it, these people are going to get you. But then we don't know who these people are. So I didn't see you threatening him.
Right.
It was a warning, and I'm not trying to be political.
Let me put it this way. There is a lawsuit against him that I was asked to join. Okay. I was asked to help with it beforehand, and then I was asked to join after he illegally recorded me and broadcasted it and accused me of threatening to kill him. I was warning him not about the Mossad. I was warning him about the people who are very upset with him, and he has multiple lawsuits. Plus, the reason he was taken down, okay, I guess I have to say things that people don't really know about. But his email was hacked, right? And then it was put online so everyone could see it. And in those emails, he made some horrible statements that aren't even they're not even what he usually says. And
You're talking about Jason Goodman?
Yes.
Are you talking about Jason Goodman? His emails were hacked? Sorry,
Yes.
I wasn't aware of that. Okay,
Yes.
Go ahead.
And they were put out, and people showed them to me, and they said this is why he was taken down. Well, I don't even like to say this group out loud, because when you do, they instantaneously show up. But that's who showed up for Jason. And I knew that was going to happen because of something that had recently happened with the lawsuit and had also recently come to light from the hacking, and also had come to light because I was vetting him. And when I vetted him, I found out who had been paying him $3,500 a week for the entire time that he started and was going until the big battle happened with George Webb, because he didn't know who George Webb was. And now George Webb has gone to Chicago to stay with some friends of a friend of mine. And George Webb tried to come to my house on the way. So I'm not going to get too specific about this, but I was literally saying to him something that some other people had said to me. And so I was saying, Jason, please be careful, brother. Brother, I love you. I'm trying to warn you. You need to be careful. You need to get out of this business. I know who pays you. Now, I didn't want to say who paid him, but we posted it on our site. And so if you look at our site under Patriots for Truth, put in Jason's name, you will see pages after pages after pages where we prove who he is. Did I need to bring him out and do that to him? Jason gets lots of people to help him. As you probably know, when he attacks anybody, all kinds of people show up on your site to dox you.
Right.
There's a reason for that, and I know who those people are. And if I'm going to tell you who he should be most afraid of, it's the people who are going to knock him out of doing his job. And those people are so surprising because those are the people that he was actually working for. So he's doing such a bad job that he's being offed by the very people who were paying him. And the reason that I know this is because it was all it's all public. You can see this stuff. There was another person sent from Hollywood, three people sent from Hollywood at the same time. Jason, another lady who was making $7,500 a week, and Jason went into a war with her when he found that out, and another person who Jason often refers to as his 20-year-long friend who came with him from Hollywood. I'm not going to name those people, but those people have begged me to be on their show. I won't. So when I vetted them, I learned this. When I vetted him, I learned this. So when he called me and I just figured this out, first off, I wasn't in a good mood because he had jacked me around and he lied to me on the phone over and over and over, saying he communicated to me, or saying that he didn't send a dozen of his people after me to beg me to interview with him, or that he didn't contact me 6 times. Those are all lies. And he was making me upset. And then all I could do is think, I need to help this guy. I'd like for him to just kind of be done with his meanness. But that's going to happen anyway because I was already told in advance before this stuff happened, which proves to me that the people who told me knew what was going on, and they must know the people who hacked his emails. So, who is Jason need to be scared of? The very people that he's working with crowdsource, those people and other people that he interviewed at the time. He has multiple lawsuits against him. He has all kinds of threats against him. He's made so many enemies that it is shocking. And I am so amazed by the people that he was actually able to take out. And the reason he was able to take them out is because he's much more than one person. Now, if you look at our site, I named the person who paid him. That person works in Hollywood. He has a huge company. He's made 130 movies. And he sent these people into the alt media to create chaos and personally destroy them. So when Jason told me, this is all the money I had, I left Hollywood. Jason left Hollywood because he was charged with certain crimes. The same crimes he continued on Tinder. Same crimes. And when he came and started his gig, it was to pull those people together. He pulled them together and he destroyed them. Let's remember, out of crowdsource, all of them are suing him or don't like him or have called him out for his crimes. What did he then do? He called George Webb out for his crimes. So if you're watching George Webb now and he keeps mentioning my name, I've talked to George Webb a few times and I asked him to do something for me and he did it. And he could have only got that information if he is exactly who he said he was on that tape that day. So when Jason and he are fighting back and forth, they're not listening to each other because both of them are not what the other one thinks they are. Now, I didn't answer your question directly, but let me give you the answer. The person he needs to be the most scared of is their initials are AM. I won't say the name because that would mean that they could easily pull that up. So AM, that's the person he needs to be scared of. He also needs to be scared of the organization he was working for that's now turned on him. And he also needs to be very weary and very worried about the people that he has angered by destroying them. And particularly because he went to the lawsuit, the case, I think just yesterday or tomorrow, within a few days of when I was told about this, the lawsuit was coming and I was asked to be part of it, and I won't be part of that. I'm not going to be part of destroying anybody. That's not what I'm about. I'm about truth. That's it. And the truth hurts. And when you get red-pilled and you're told that Q is a psyops and you're a Q person, you would set yourself on fire rather than believe that Q is not who you think Q is because Q gives you hope. I don't want to destroy the people's hope with Q. That's the reason I'm not going to talk about Q anymore. I revealed what I know is the truth. I was convinced. Jason Goodman is not part of that truth. Neither is George Webb, and neither are a whole lot of other people I could name. But what George Webb did, what Jason did to me, I expected to have happen. If I interviewed with him, he was going to do that to me anyway. And I know the questions he was going to ask me because the people he works for makes him ask those questions of people. And when they say something wrong, they go to them personally and they just simply disappear because you cannot win against this organization, period.
Okay, I think you gave a pretty full answer to that question. Yeah, you can go to his website, Patriots for Truth, and search Jason Goodman, and you'll see his article on him. I believe with some, holy cow, now the phone's really blowing up. Okay, this is Nathan, you're on the air. This is Nathan, you're on the air. Okay, I'll have to take this one. Okay, hang that one up. Pick this one up. This is Nathan, you're on the air.
Hey, Nathan.
Hey.
I just have a quick question about his opinion on Seth Rich.
Okay, go ahead.
Boy, that's a good question.
Yeah, so basically last I knew, George Webb was actually in D.C. with Jerome Corsi, and they uncovered proof that he wasn't actually killed, he was extracted. And then, basically just got buried and never came out. So, just curious.
Okay.
His opinion.
whether he was whether he really didn't die, which is actually I don't think he did. So put it there. But what's your opinion about what he just said?
That's a great question, and I must admit that I now have to retract my earlier statements. They weren't opinions, and they weren't what I was saying happened. I simply was reporting. And what I was reporting seemed to make it look as if he might have been the person who took a memory drive and gave it to, someone who got it to Kim.com and or to WikiLeaks and or whatever. And I kind of half believe that because of what Julian Assange said, though I can't confirm any of it. And then I made a big mistake talking with Jason. I said that Craig Murray was dead. No, the guy who reported that Craig Murray received the memory device was in his deathbed. He was 91 years old. I forget the guy's name. And on his deathbed, he said this, so it came to the news. So then they asked Craig Murray, and Craig, who's a friend of course, WikiLeaks, and he's kind of one of these alternative people, said, yeah. And he twice on film, on air, said, and in writing, confirmed, and they have his words in quotes, that he received a memory device, and he described where it was and so on and so forth. Now, Jason says that he had Craig Murray on his show, and that Craig says he didn't receive any memory device. Well, oh my goodness. And then we have people like George Webb who say that Andrew McCabe went and got 3 MS-13 guys, including a guy named Aloy, I think is his name, and they have pictures of a bag over his head and being extracted from prison, and they say these 3 people were on a film standing over Seth Rich, proving his murder, and that they took the memory device. Okay, well, that sounded kind of some weird confusion. Lots of confusion at the hospital. Lots of confusion with the police. Lots of confusion with why the FBI came in and took his laptop. Lots of confusion with why he told his parents one story and they reported it, and then later they changed the story. They hired the person who came in. I was supposed to interview with him just the other day, Ed. I guess you probably know him, right, Nathan? You'll probably be interviewing him. Please interview him because maybe you'll get to the bottom of the story, because I don't know the bottom of the story. So I'm building up to tell you the answer. Sorry. Donna Brazil saying she closed her shutters because the Russian snipers are going to shoot her, but then she comes out for Seth's thing and she's all over the place and she says they don't know who did it and it was, blah, blah, blah. All lies, all the lies. So then we're told that Warren Flood is the person on the Guccifer 2.0 that proved that it was Warren Flood that took the breach. And then we're told, no, it was Imran Awan who had it.
So what do you think? Hold on, because we'll get to the next call, because I'm interested. What do you think? Did Seth Rich die?
I don't know, but I am told now by people I really, really, really trust that he was extracted and he is in a kibbutz, and they told me where. They told me the name of the kibbutz. They told me when, how, and why he was a plant to begin with. And when they told me all that, I went, oh my goodness, that is amazing. Because Seth Rich had access to both sides of the server of the DNC, the side for the manipulation, for the rigging of the elections, and then the side for the donations, which had the proof that Soros donated so much money and the illegal movement of the money. So he had, and this was well known, he had access to both of those, right? And so when he got access to the second one, then he gets killed, or he is extracted, or he disappears, or he leaks, or he doesn't leak. Who knows? All I know is I don't think I know the truth on that. And I don't know when we will know the truth, but the people who told me this, I really, the information they gave me sounded right, but I can't say.
Why would they give you that information, though, if it is right?
Because I was wrong in my interpretation, and they follow what I say.
And they wanted to set you on the right path.
Yes, and so I'm not going on that path now, am I? But I am listening to that path, and I'm thinking it through, and when I get more information, I'm going to have to, maybe severely adjust what I think about all of that. But I do know who it was that actually, it was, Dmitry Alperovich and CrowdStrike that went in that actually left the footprints and created the false narrative And that's been demonstrated again and again because he's been caught in every time he does this. And we've done lots of shows on him and his dad, his dad controls the cryptological keys to so many things, military, corporate, all throughout America. Why do we let Russian dissidents come to America and we give them top secret security clearances and allow them CrowdStrike? And Dmitry Alperovitch was the only person used by Obama in the last 5 years of his administration for any type of cyber warfare attacks in the government and also in corporations. And this guy is as crooked as can be. He was arrested by the FBI originally, and then they used him to go. He actually was the most effective. Dmitry Alperovitch was the most effective Russian hacker in American history. They arrested him. They made him an FBI asset. And then he worked against these people, the Russians doing the same thing he was doing, stealing people's names, identities, so on and so forth. And then he worked for TIA, which was the group that was a CIA group that was the foundation for McAfee. Because McAfee, of course, worked directly in cyber warfare for the government, and Dmitry worked there. The second he shows up in McAfee, like the day he shows up, he supposedly discovers the biggest Chinese hacking in history. And so he's a hero. Later we find out, all lies. Then another one he attributed to North Korea. Later we find out, all lies. Another one he said was Russia. All lies. Another one he said was Russia in Ukraine and the Ukrainian artillery scam that showed that he was using old Russian footprints that were so old that you could buy on the internet that not even a high schooler would make that mistake. So the footprints that were left that have been analyzed by Forensicator and everyone else, look at Guccifer 2.0. And then you're going to start to see what was really going on. Imran Awan had access to all of that. There didn't need to be a breach. The DNC was controlled by Imran Awan, who has been, the Office of Inspector General for the Congress has said he committed at least a dozen major espionage crimes, him and his group. And the five of the group, there were five of them in them, four of them left, they're back in Pakistan. He tried to leave. He was arrested. He still hasn't been charged for espionage. When they actually do it, we know where the server is that has the DNC information running through it. The information technology people in Congress have been reporting this to the Daily Caller for the whole time. And Jeff Sessions has done nothing about the largest espionage theft in American history, which would have included, yes, Imran Awan had total access to Podesta's emails, his iPad, the DNC, all of the DCCC's iPads, phones, computers, and it all ran through Becerra's office, and then it went to an off-site server, which George Webb and Jason are fighting about because Jason says that George Webb left that running and that the destroyed hard drives with huge amounts, according to George Webb, tetrabyte, what is it called?
I'm just going to take another call. I got lost on
Nathan.
the answer. Hold on. I'm going to take another call. Go ahead, caller.
Hey, Nathan, what's going on?
Not much.
Hey, just want to get back to Cicada. What does Thomas Paine over there think about Quinn Michaels?
What do you think about Quinn Michaels?
I don't know who Quinn Michaels is.
Oh, that was a quick question then. Shoot, I already hung up on him. Quinn Michaels is somebody that works with Jason Goodman. All right, next call. This is Nathan. You're on the air. You're on the air.
Hello.
Hey.
Hey. It's John Barlow calling.
I'm sorry? Should we know the name?
I do.
Yeah. Hello.
Hello, John.
Follow the white rabbit, Douglas.
Thank you, John.
So, do you have any questions?
Did you catch that, Nathan? He wants to know if we have any questions for him. Let me explain who John is. John is someone I do videos with. He is not really an official member of the conclave, but I talk to him all the time. I vet things with him. He's not trying to hide his identity. He's an author. He's all over the place on the internet and so on and so forth. So he has, if there's anybody who wants to ask questions about our operation, he knows quite a bit about it, except some of the things that I've told you today. He has yet to get involved in. So he's calling not to ask a question. He's calling to see if anybody's got a question for him.
Well, you would know the right questions to ask, Douglas. What should we be asking about?
Well, it doesn't matter. I just think that you guys are doing a great job, and I think that there's a lot of fluff going around the internet that is really a distraction. And the more people can get focused and realize that the mission right now is to make sure that everybody knows that their government's being run by the senior executive service, which are unelected bureaucrats, and they're bringing in no-bid contracts and derailing all kinds of things that President Trump is trying to do. They're facilitated by Serco, which is a company that's the biggest company nobody's ever heard of. And basically what their job is they're like the nervous system for the deep state connections to the secret government. And if you can understand what I just said, you've made a great deal of progress. We're going to be bringing more information out very soon regarding all of this.
Okay, great.
John is a friend of Phil McConnell and everybody out there. He talks to everybody and sort of, all the big wigs out there in the alternative news. So John has really got his finger on the pulse beat of what's going on, and I think he just called to support us.
Okay,
Thank you,
cool.
John.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I'll let you go and sail on, gentlemen.
Yeah, well, actually, while I have you guys both on, I'll break some news. I asked my dad about the SES. He worked for the EPA. He was a charter member of the SES, actually, an unelected bureaucrat, no less. And he said he understands why. I said, hey, do you know people are saying the SES is the deep? I said, do you know why people have conspiracies about it? And he was like, yeah, they probably say it was the deep state, but we were just government. People who headed up divisions of government agencies. So my dad literally was a charter member of SES. So I'm breaking that news right now, and he's an egghead like you. Actually was into computer programming and crap, and just happened to. He said it was offered to anybody who led an agency, basically, which he did at the Environmental Protection Agency. So, is it really that big of a deal? I mean, is it? I mean,
well, it's like most organizations. You're going to find nice people and rogue people in all the various agencies. And so that's the difficulty with this challenge. The question is the process by which this senior executive service functions and the regulations. What that does is that gives them a great deal of slippage so that they can get certain things accomplished that aren't in the best interests of the American people. That wasn't the way government was supposed to be. It wasn't supposed to be run by a bunch of unelected bureaucrats.
Right.
See? And that's very much like the EU. I mean, one of the big problems that the UK people had with the EU is they realized that 75% of the laws they were being governed by were being created by people in Brussels whose names they didn't even know.
Right.
So that's when things get out of hand.
Right. Well, and he'll be the first to tell you that he thinks probably unelected bureaucrats should be he's a globalist. So not that he's not that he was involved in anything shady, but he believes in regulations and eggheads running everything. And so I was just kind of wondering if it was all as dark and deep as everybody said it was. But so anyway, thanks a lot for calling in and supporting the show.
Yeah, my pleasure.
All right, cheers.
Nathan, you just called your dad a globalist.
He is.
Well, then we're kind of right, aren't we? But listen, there's a way to come up through the civil service. Sounds like your dad worked his way up, and then they get a choice. And when they get the choice, ask him about this. This is the way we understand it. Find out if this is true. We've been told this by other people. If you come up through the normal civil service, you can actually be offered this position, but then they try to scare you. They say, but you'll be an at-will employee. You'll have this different kind of thing. You might have to give up your old retirement plan. You might have to do, and then when you get up here, you're part of this system, and you got to really work with the system. And then they get in there. Those people, they weren't appointed. Your dad wasn't appointed, and your dad had skills. We're talking about people appointed who would be in charge of him,
Right.
who have
right.
no skills in that area, didn't fill out any of the paperwork he did, might be given a top secret security clearance and they don't deserve it, and on and on. So your dad is one of the people, and it's called it's a career incumbent. It can be called. There's a variety of SES positions where these people actually earned the right to be a senior executive. And we're complaining about the ones who are not trained. And we know this is true because we know all kinds of people who work in the government. They say, we got bosses. These bosses come in out of nowhere. They know nothing. They hire, they fire. You're not even supposed to be able to hire and fire us. When they do say something, it's not the way that we usually do it, or it holds it up, or it causes confusion. And so you go, oh, well, so really, they don't know they're part of the deep state. They just know they're keeping the bureaucracy in the status quo. As you said, he likes details and organizations, and he likes all this, well, that's what holds everything up.
Right. Yeah, he said it was basically like he was the head of an agency, for the government. They said, and they came out with the idea for the SES, and it's an idea where they wanted managers to be able to move from one department to another, basically. Mm-hmm. And they offered basically a package for it, better pay, bonuses, stuff like that. He ended up not having to move around, but that was the idea. And I said, well, was it clicky? And there were groups within that were clicked up and stuff. And so there could have been other stuff going on that he just didn't know about, but he wasn't appointed. And I think you're talking about people who were appointed to the SES, which I guess would be a different thing. So yeah, he doesn't even remember who was president. He was assuming it was Clinton when it first came into existence, but he doesn't remember for sure.
Was he all the way back to the 60s, the late 60s, or did he start?
He was a charter member.
Okay, so then if he was in cryptology, he was in
cryptology though. No, he just worked for the EPA.
Oh, EPA. Sorry, I thought he was in intelligence. Yeah, EPA.
Yeah, no, he just did air pollution stuff. Hey, this is Nathan. You're on the air.
Hey, Nathan.
What's
this
up?
Is Jay Leasy. Hey, so I got a question for Douglas about an article that he wrote. He has an article named Lucifer's Grail. And in this article, he says, and I'll quote, "The legend about Lucifer are true. The author knows this because in another lifetime, I was there with Lucifer as one of his students. Can he just explain to us what exactly that means?" And then one other question, and I'll get off and listen. The second part of that, he says, "I've seen the true light of Christ brought to me through Sophia, the wisdom of the Christ. I have helped redeem Lucifer through the power of the Pentecost, the holy baptism of fire." So if he could just explain what exactly is going on there, because that sounds kind of crazy and nutty, redeeming Satan. Thanks, I'll listen.
Yeah,
thank you.
What's your name again?
He's gone. But you say take the answer off the air. Go ahead.
Okay. So, sir, that's a great question. I love difficult questions. Yes, he went over the bridge on the Glassbead game to our other side, to the Gospel Sophia books. And what he's quoting from is it's a fictional story. It's not a true story. And the story is basically saying that what we hear in the Bible is the fall from heaven, that in a way all of those things, Michael the archangel, Sophia, Christ, Lucifer, the devil, they're all in us, and we got to work it through. So I'm talking about what the human being does. And when we're talking about Lucifer, we're talking about the Lucifer referred to in heaven. He's the father of lies, and he's not a good guy. Now, there's a myth in China called, and it's one of their oldest myths, it's called Journey to the West. It's about a being called the Sun Monkey King. And that story is really about a kind of a fictionalized story about ancient history where the Sun Monkey King took a monk named Tang and two other beings, Piggy and Rake, and these three people go on kind of a trip to the Emerald City. It's the original kind of Wizard of Oz story. But anyway, the point is that being the Sun Monkey King is actually a Chinese rendition of Lucifer. Now remember, Lucifer is also Prometheus in Greece, the light bearer, the light bringer, who was then, tied to the mountain and had to be saved by Hercules. In the Norse myths, he's called Loki, and you see that now in these movies and television. So the being of light was punished for what they did. And so what I was telling in this story is a reference to a Chinese real folk legend, but what I'm telling in this story is what the human being goes through. We all come from heaven, and we fall down here. We have to wrestle with the demons, and then wisdom, that's Sophia, wisdom comes to you, and then you realize who Christ is, and then you realize that you have a higher self, and that you're the Christ in you, and the Christ that, the Christ outside of you, the real Christ, which is your higher self, call it whatever you want. That's the story. So it's a story of redemption of evil, and I'm glad you brought it up, but it is simply a story. And you'll also see other stories, the myth of the North, the biosphere. I write lots of stories, but these stories are to try to take religious ideas. And the most famous one was Star Wars. I helped Marcia Lucas put those stories, and in Star Wars, Lucifer is the evil emperor, and the evil of the earth is Darth Vader. And Luke has to find the light in himself, which was supposed to be represented by Princess Leia, his sister, but who he fell in love with, and then he finds out that's his twin. That's your higher self, which is your twin. And so the whole story of Star Wars, and even some, supposedly the original stories that I gave them for Indiana Jones had those content in them. So it isn't an evil thing. I'm not a Luciferian. I'm not a Satanist. I'm totally Christian. But the Christians talk about Lucifer, and nobody seems to understand it. So I was trying to clarify that for people. And I really appreciate that question, because people have turned in the work we do on our other sites and the other books we do and all this other stuff that I've been doing for a long time. And they say, oh, it's a cult. It's a mystery center. They're going to draw you in. It's Luciferianism. It's Satanism. Well, no. It's the best form. I mean, it's a comprehensive picture of Christianity, but it also includes everything in all the traditions. So as a person with a PhD in comparative religions, that's what I was trying to do. Show people that even evil can be redeemed. So, you say Satan, you say Lucifer, and people think that's forever, even after the Pope just said there is no hell. But really, those forces are attacking you at all times. You have Lucifer and Satan attacking you at all times. This shouldn't be new to people. What they need is the path, and the path in tradition has always been called Sophia, the being of wisdom, who is a feminine being, described as a feminine being. And this isn't saying, throwing out God and saying God's female or whatever. But in ancient Indian religions, Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva all had their consorts. And in many religions, their gods are trinities, and they have a trinity of female goddesses who work together with them. So we're not promoting, going to feminism or anything like that. We simply do the same thing in comparative religions as we do with geopolitics. We went in, we looked at the truth, we tried to present it in a variety of ways. And so it might be insulting to a Christian to even read that title. But remember, the Holy Grail was supposedly the stone that was struck from the crown of Lucifer by the Archangel Michael with the sword that God gave him. I'm not making this stuff up. I'm just telling the story in a way that humans can understand it.
All right, I think you answered that question as completely as possible. Are you still good for more phone calls? Because basically, I'll just keep you. So you have to say uncle at some point, though, because people will keep calling. Okay.
Well, so, Nathan, I'm only doing this show with you, and though other people, I know what's going to happen. I'll probably receive many, many, many invites to do interviews. But that's why I want to make this complete, so I can say once and for all, these questions have been answered, and they're a distraction from. Some of the attacks on us and stuff are simply distractions, and my conversation with Jason was a terrible distraction from what we were trying to reveal as the truth. But I realized when I was talking with Jason that if he really kept harassing me like that, I was going to have to tell people who he is. And I'm sorry, Jason, that you continue to this moment to harass me and that we posted a page, but I am not telling people right now. I am not doxing you. I don't even go to your site. I couldn't stand your productions. I thought you were a mean person who didn't know anything about what you were asking people, and your questions were so pathetically naive that they were insulting to the people you're interviewing. I don't know why anybody ever did any crowdsource work with you, because I would have found you impossible to deal with. And I'm very sad that you got any attention from this, because you don't deserve it. You don't deserve any of that attention. And what you need to do is simply stop bothering the other people in alternative news and then going into wars with them, because that's just not right.
All right. I'll open the phones up one more time. 650-429-8294. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Some people are asking how you can support the show. Go to truthclothing.io and pick anything you like. This is Nathan. You're on the air.
Yeah, hi. This is Eve calling from Iowa.
Hello.
Hello?
Hey, go ahead. You're on the air.
Hi, my name is Eve, calling from Iowa.
Yep, go ahead.
I'm a big fan of both of you. You guys are just doing a great show, and I'm very, very supportive. I have a question about NESARA, the law.
He didn't understand. Say that again.
I have a question about the trust accounts that are supposedly in the Federal Reserve banks when we're born.
Oh, okay. The trust accounts that are supposedly in the bank where we're born. Do you know what she's talking about?
A little bit, yes.
This is one of those.
What is it? Are you asking whether that's true?
Well, I actually have two questions, and it's all about the money that, it's been such a big deception. One, I wanted to know, yes, if you can validate if it's true and if it's really a way for us humans to obtain control of them. And the second question I just wanted to ask is, do you believe that the NESARA law will go into effect?
I don't know. I have not researched that enough. I have looked at that, and I can tell you that what they're trying to tell you, the substance of what they're trying to tell you is true. When you were born, you are saddled by the Federal Reserve with a tax debt for wars that no one you know fought. That's how we got our debt. And so, yes, when you were born, because as people will point out, the United States is actually a chartered corporation, which was chartered with basically with the City of London. Now, the Federal Reserve basically arose by the people who were sent over here by those very people. So when the Federal Reserve was created, it had absolute intent to turn all of Americans into debt slaves, exactly as they'd done in England and wherever other Rothschild-style central banks are. And by the way, it's not a myth. What are there, 180 some central banks, and like 120 of them are owned by the Rothschild family? So this isn't a myth that the Rothschilds are very much setting the pace for central banks. So central banks, when they are central banks connected to the Federal Reserve, we don't owe a single penny. So I think what you're getting at is a very, very, very good point. All we have to do, because the Fed is a corporation, is declare bankruptcy. And we can declare bankruptcy because we do not collect enough taxes to ever pay what is called an odious debt. That odious debt is based upon the inability for us to ever pay it back. And that's what the Rothschild central banks are about. So, all we need to do is what Trump just did. He said, he didn't do it. There is a bill in Congress coming forth to say that they want to align every dollar with a certain amount of gold, right? And that is because China is trying to say, and they lied about how much gold they have. They lied. They said they found 8,000, they made 8,000 tons of gold through the Shanghai gold market. Complete lie. Later they came out and it was told it was a lie. So the point is, we need to say to China, because we have 87% of our currency of the whole world is the dollar. So we're going to back it up with gold and maybe even a basket of other things, silver, whatever. It could be bitcoins and all kinds of other things. But the point is, when that happens, and if that happens, that's why Munchen went to Fort Knox to see if the gold was there. We need to audit the gold in the Fed because it's being used for all kinds of fake purposes. And we don't owe anything to the Fed. And the central banks have now become quite corrupt because a third of their assets are in the stock market. And that's the reason the stock market's now going up and down, because the Fed is trying to dump their assets. But they also have fake gold holdings. And they also have all kinds of fake holdings. So the central banks get paid billions of dollars. The last time we were to pay them, it was $80 billion for 5 years. The central bank, then the government said, no, this time we're only giving you a couple billion. So they sued the government. And the good news of that suit is they have no standing. They can't sue us. They're a private corporation. We can default on them. We don't owe $20 trillion. We owe nothing. And the reason that that's true is because there have been 20 trillion off-book purchases by the Fed, which nobody wants to talk about, but these have come out in congressional hearings. One of them was when China and Saudi Arabia tried to dump their treasury bonds on us as literally economic terrorism. What happened? The plunge protection team and the exchange stabilization fund and the U.S. Treasury said, oh, print up $4.5 trillion. We're simply going to buy all those bonds 1 second after they go on the market with fake fiat money. Because of these crimes, we don't owe them anything. They have stolen more than 20 trillion. We don't owe them that money because it's odious debt. It can never be paid, and therefore you cannot be in a compromised business agreement like that. It would take nothing for us to simply default on that debt. You don't even have to take a congressional, any congressional action at all. Here's what has to happen. You simply audit, you freeze the Fed, you freeze the central banks, and then you simply audit them. You take what's ours, which is everything, any cash, any money, it's all ours. You take it to the Treasury, and you run it out of the Treasury, because that's where it's run anyway. People say that the Fed determines our monetary policy. That is a lie. The policy comes directly out of the Exchange Stabilization Fund, period. And people don't know this, but Trump has already taken massive actions with U.S. Marshals through the U.S. Treasury Office of Intelligence and Analysis. And he is going to take down the Fed. And when that happens, that odious debt and the fact that when you're born, you are saddled with that debt, which is, I think, what you're talking about, can completely be destroyed. And it will not harm anything. That will not harm anything. The Fed does nothing. The Fed lies. The Fed moves gold into banks for false valuations. That's their major job. And that's really run by the Exchange Stabilization Fund. And the Fed itself actually has to use their central banks to do any business. And then they use 5 brokers, the worst, most criminal brokers in America, to do all of their bidding. For instance, the day that Trump was elected, George Soros lost $1 billion, didn't he? And the moment that the stock market opened, it was a huge loss. Seconds later, and the reason this happens is because in the U.S. Treasury, they do bond trading. And that is done outside of hours, but it doesn't get reported and shown on the board until it becomes active. So the U.S. Treasury had already offset what was happening. And so what did you see? You didn't see the market go down. You see it went up, and George Soros lost $1 billion. He doesn't like losing $1 billion. So therefore, that proves to you that the criminals who created this system, which George Soros is in complete cooperation with, that's now been again pointed out in Macedonia, Albania, and in Montenegro. His Open Society has fed the USAID and worked directly with the government with dozens of color revolutions. And so in America, we are in the purple revolution. And the only way to take them down is to take down the Fed and to do exactly what you said. Create freedom for Americans at birth, because they are turned into debt slaves at birth. And this is not an exaggeration. Each of us owns a part of that debt, and you will be taxed accordingly. And you are never free in America. If you own a piece of land, You cannot own it. You must pay taxes on it continuously, and they will take it from you if you do not. And this is what those contracts were about. We are indentured servants paying war debt. The IRS is illegal. Social Security is illegal. The Fed is illegal. The IMF, the World Bank, practically everything in the United Nations is illegal that we participated in. That's the reason Trump has pulled back from the refugee program, from the World Health Organization, from many programs. They're all illegal. There's no constitutional provision for any of this. And so whether you like Trump or not, he's out there doing a deal. Now, he may be a jerk, and he may say it in a way that you don't like. But when it comes down to it, just follow his actions and don't listen to Q. Don't follow Bolton. Don't follow Sessions. Don't follow Horowitz. Follow the truth by actions, not these speculations of nonsense.
All right. That was so solid. I was so happy to hear somebody talk about ending the Fed. I thought that was great. I think everybody's along with you. If that's what Donald Trump is doing, if that's what he's doing. And I supported him during the run-up to the election because he said the stock market was fake and all that stuff. Doesn't say that anymore, If he's really not going to create more war in the Middle East and all that stuff, then I'll be with him. Because we have to end the show at some point, I'm going to go ahead and end it on that note, and on the note that I want to thank you for giving so much of your time to this show and to my audience. And I hope everyone in my audience, regardless of what they think of you, whether they want to call you a shill or a new age, whatever, I really hope they appreciate all the time you spend and for coming on this show to talk about it, because I didn't pull any questions, and I'm sure there's more I could have asked you. So, are you good wrapping things up right now, and then I'll take things over to Twitch, everybody. But
I'm really good, and as I said, we had dozens and dozens of offers. We chose you because we knew that you would not hold back on the questions and that you would ask the difficult questions, and this is our way to support you. We're going to make sure that your stuff starts to get out through our stuff, and we're just going to support you. And it was exactly as when I contacted you, it wasn't just my thing. It was because all of us believed in you, and we actually think that you can be a huge voice of truth in this movement. So thank you. I am thrilled to give you this time. I'm thrilled that you ask all the tough questions, and that we even had some shills call in, and that we got to show that this is serious. And I like the seriousness that you have. This is no joke. This is an info war, and the truth, if it prevails, it will save the Republic, and I believe that with my whole heart. So Nathan, thank you so much, and thank you for what you do with Lift the Veil, because we need to lift that veil.